another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on February the 26th, 2019. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, my librarian partner in crime,
Caffeine Rage. And
On today's show, we will, of course, be discussing the games that we played this week. We're going to be talking about the February Game Club, which is Bomber Crew. We will reveal our next Game Club game for the month of March. Bethesda bans Fallout 76's one fan for accumulating too much ammo.
Shame they can't ban Fallout 76. But then again, we would have very slim pickings on news from week to week.
Indeed. What else would we bag on every single week? The Federal Trade Commission is to host a public loot box workshop. There are rumored financial troubles at GOG. Metro Exodus players are leaving thousands of positive reviews on Steam. A YouTube creator misleads the public over an Anthem video takedown. We'll have our weekly community corner discussing game night for next week. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Caffeinated.
Indeed, I am sleepy boy. Actually,
I'm trying to fight that off, so caffeinated.
Right. A tired boy is a more accurate description. I had a very, very hectic day around the office today. Many problems, miscommunications, nothing like out of the ordinary for any job. But it's like today was one of those days where everything just sort of came together to make me want to pull my hair out. And also, you know, I had to deal with like people's sadness and stuff, so. Granted, that is what I do. But enough about me. More about you. Because that would be the gentlemanly thing to do. I haven't listened to that song in a long time.
I don't know the reference. I'm too old.
Yeah. When did this song came out?
Or I'm not cool enough for...
Mid to late 2000s?
Or most likely just didn't give a shit.
I mean, it was like, I think a hipstery band. Like, this song came out while I was in college, or I heard about it while I was in college, and I had some hipster friends who, granted, they did introduce me to some pretty good music, but also some stuff that was kind of like, this seems like you're like too stuck up your own ass about it, but whatever. What was the band? Griffin House?
Never heard of it.
Something? I don't know. I'll look it up at some point. Listen to it later.
Well, let's just put it this way. Right now I'm listening to the Cars, so.
I'm listening to my fan because I get easily distracted if I listen to music and things while trying to do the show. Mostly because I'll go and like select or just like scroll through songs looking for something that I really want, which defeats the purpose of just sort of putting them like random on a random playlist or something. So I got some problems.
Yes, you do.
But none of them were with games I played this week.
Yeah, just skipping over how I'm doing. But,
Oh, no, I just like saw that in my head, and I was like, I'm going to go for it. The king of bad segues.
No, it's fine. Nobody cares. Let's go.
I care. How was your week this week, Rage?
Trying to stabilize my sleep cycle, but constantly getting insomnia, so that's why I'm actually drinking coffee number 4, which is usually a bad sign for me for my sleep cycle.
Yeah. It is a brutal cycle. You're tired, so you drink extra coffee, which makes it harder to sleep. So you're more tired, so you drink extra coffee, and so forth, until something breaks.
Well, the thing is, I don't have anything major going on for me for the rest of the week, so I could sleep.
Right. I do not have that luxury. Oh. Tomorrow, I was going to go in late tomorrow on purpose, because I had like a nice free spot open, and then like right before I was leaving, it's like 4:30, I was getting ready to leave, wrapping up, and one of the people from the front desk was like, hey, I need your 8 a.m. in the morning for such and such who's having an emergency. And I was like, okay, I guess. I always try to keep the front desk ladies happy. Got to keep them happy, and then they take good care of you, but occasionally that means you have to do something like give them an appointment you don't want to. C'est la vie.
Yes, it is.
I kind of want coffee now too, but I will wind up in that same boat if I have a cup of coffee right now this late. So I've just got water.
Well, technically, coffee it has water in it.
That is true. Coffee has quite a bit of water uses quite a bit of water to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So that counts for something.
And like going to the moon, once you get halfway there, the gravity just pulls you back in. Unless you're based in reality and not a movie.
Yes. I know.
I might have to warn you. I'm probably going to be a little bit sillier than usual because I'm a little sleep deprived.
That's fine.
But that also likely makes me a lot more entertaining.
I will try and rein us in a little bit so that I can go to bed at somewhat. I can pretend as a decent hour. Who knows?
So forced segue, games we played?
Yeah, forced segue, games we played. I am liking this first game that you've got on here.
Yeah, this my first game is TerraTech. It had a free weekend. There was 2 open world games that had free weekends this weekend. And this was not the one I was planning on playing because this was one that I was pretty much going to get at some point anyway. But I wanted to do the other one that had some questionable practices going into it to have something to bitch about.
Right.
Unfortunately, they did an unusual thing and had the free weekend end on a Sunday. So, yeah. So I decided to do TerraTech instead, which is essentially if Besieged, the block-based vehicle puzzle game, for those who don't know it, made sweet, sweet love to the character, to the creature stage of Spore. And the game actually came out to be somewhat good because, it does have some bad DNA there, if you pardon the turn of phrase there, with Spore. It is technically an open world sandbox survival game that's based around block-based vehicle creation. It's such a weird thing, and it has a bunch of resource collection and delivery in it as well. So there's several different modes in this, and I focused on the campaign mode, which is essentially you crash onto an alien world with a handful of blocks to build a starter vehicle out of, and there's a bunch of hostile vehicles all around the place. You kill them, you gain their blocks, and you start building up a bigger and badder vehicle. And you eventually are able to build up a base to be able to sell off resources that you could collect to get money so you could respawn, and also buy specialized blocks to be able to harvest resources to be able to build up yourself. You're able to go do missions to unlock various factions, which start unlocking different types of blocks. Like you could see on some of the screenshots, like there's the giant yellow end loader thing or dump truck thing. That's a particular faction, and leveling up your reputation with that faction unlocks the big blocks. They're a lot more unwieldy, but they have a lot more health. There's the kind of the general purpose, which are a lot smaller, but a lot more fragile as well, but they're a lot more agile. And it's actually a very good game overall. I have my problems with it because of course I do. But a lot of them feel a little nitpicky and also is more pertaining to this particular genre. For one, it is very, very grindy, but that's kind of the point of the open world survival game, where a lot of it is going around collecting resources, taking it back to your base to either craft, which there is a crafting mechanic in the game. I only unlocked it at the very end of my time with the game, unfortunately, so I didn't get a lot of time with it, but it's essentially you go out with a particular part on your vehicle, and you're just collecting the blocks, the raw resources to bring in to refine to build up a particular type of block. And like it may require like 3 wood and a and a chunk of rock or something to go into the fabricator to build up. It's a very simplistic crafting system, but it works. And it's typically a lot easier to do than trying to build up enough money to be able to sell. Sell to the trading post to be able to buy the blocks outright. And the trading posts also have a rotating inventory that's also limited. So, you may end up being a little screwed otherwise if, like, you're trying to build up this absolutely massive machine, but you need a lot of a particular block where you may be waiting several days in game time, which is actually not that long. But you may end up waiting some time to be able to buy the blocks on top of just the sheer amount of money that it could take. So, yeah, the crafting system basic, but works. Resource gathering, I mean, you're basically just putting a drill on the front of your machine and driving into rocks to mine. I mean, it works, right?
Yeah.
And then you just haul things back to a base. There's a lot of flexibility and a lot of interesting things that you could do with the vehicles that I saw in a very short time. And also the AI will just kind of just drop in from space around you. And if you get too close to them, they go aggressive. The AI is, at least in the beginning of the game, brain dead. I'm not sure if they improve over time as they get better vehicles, or if it's just, the very, very basic AI, kind of drive in your general direction and fire guns. I did see a few vehicles that were very high level, or, had a lot of very powerful blocks on them. That a couple of them killed me pretty damn quickly. Which is a little frustrating just because one of them dropped pretty much on top of me and just decimated me. But I talked about this going into the creature stage of Spore, and part of it is, that sort of open world, do your own thing. And also the sort of the evolution, instead of, baiting like in Spore and then, getting to a creature creation stage to be able to tweak your creature, you're just killing things and taking the blocks directly and just kind of just plopping them onto your vehicle. So, you kind of see the parallels there.
Yeah.
But my big complaint outside of AI is the actual building of the vehicles. It doesn't have a dedicated build screen or build area. Instead, it just kind of levitates your cabin up, sort of the core of your vehicle. But the problem with that is that once everything is disconnected, just kind of physics takes over and just drops into a pile. So you're just kind of sorting through this massive junkyard of parts if you haven't built up a base or some sort of storage container, which I know that there's storage in the game, but I didn't get to that far. Only played how long did I play? It's not saying on the Steam store page, and unfortunately I can't access my thing. Yeah, I'm not seeing on the store page how long I played. As a matter of fact, hang on, I could go over Steam achievements. No, it's not saying there because I don't technically own the game, which is irritating. But yeah, everything kind of just drops into a pile. And if you're trying to build on a hillside or uneven land, and some of the pieces are kind of like balls,
or
like
weeds.
The healing pod is probably the worst one because it's essentially just a giant ball that generates a shield around you that regenerates your health. I actually lost one because I was trying to build up on a hillside, and it started rolling, I guess, and just disappeared because I was never able to find it, so I had to go buy another one, and it's a rather important part. Batteries are also a potential problem with this system just because they're giant canisters, like barrels. So, something else to watch out for. It's not a bad system, it's just irritating because I would like to have had some sort of dedicated build screen, especially since the campaign free roam mode seems to be single player only, even though the game touts a co-op mode. It's a co-op creation or creative mode.
So oh, okay.
So essentially, like the difference between Minecraft's survival mode and Minecraft's creative mode. It's a lot more interesting to me to have to go find the parts, which is, unfortunately seems to be focused on single player only, at least for now. I'm not sure if they ever intend to open that up to co-op. If they do, that would be a lot more fun to me, especially considering the focus of building up individual bases, and then if you're near the base, the AI will actually attack it, so you have to go defend it or build up the base to the point where it can defend itself with the weapons and regenerative shields and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, kind of wish, right?
Yeah. So the last time I played TerraTech was roughly 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that they had just added at that point was that you could create little drones, basically, which, I mean, you could just build another vehicle and you could put like a drone control pod on it.
See, I got the drone control pod, but I hadn't built up a drone yet. I only had a few hours in the game.
Yeah, and that system was really, I mean, it had just been implemented. The drones did not follow orders very well. The only thing they could really kind of do was just set them to basically follow you around. And if they didn't get stuck on stuff, they could help you out in combat. But otherwise, they were useless. So I don't know how far any of the other systems have came. I think they'd also just added aircraft to the mix.
Yeah, I didn't touch aircraft at all, unfortunately.
I've got about 12 hours total.
Yeah, the aircraft are sort of mid to high level stuff. I didn't get nearly that far.
Yeah, I was fighting a few aircraft where I was when I'd played it last time. This is a game I've always intended to return to as it's progressed through development or released.
Yeah.
And I knew at some point it would come out or would have come out, and I would find out about it and then be like, okay, so now's the time for me to, now that it's released, I'll go play it. So, I mean, I'm not going to talk about it. I've been doing another playthrough of Factorio here recently. Probably once I finish that up, I will dive into TerraTech. So, another couple of weeks, possibly. Depends on how much actual free time I get to do stuff. But, I mean, now that, I know that it's out, I'm going to go back and play through it a little more fully. Because I always liked the core stuff that was there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting system. That, like I said, I wish I had a dedicated build mode.
Yeah, I'm sad that they didn't change that. That's probably always my biggest complaint, was how that you just build things. And there was no storage available when I played, so the only way to store stuff was to just like build little bases and attach all your parts to it, and then try to remember
supposedly
where they
there's
were.
some sort of build mode or a storage mode, but even if you with the harvester or the fabricator and the scrapper, you should be able to just break down things that you don't need and rebuild them later. Because there is that recyclability.
Mm-hmm.
Well, something that is interesting though is when you played it, did they have Twitter implemented in it?
They did not. No.
Okay, here's something that's really interesting, and this is where I really draw the parallels between this and Spore. Is that if you attach Twitter to this game, you're able to share your creations, like in Spore, where it's a JPEG or a PNG or whatever, and it contains the information required to build that vehicle. But you could also have it bring in vehicles that's been shared. So that's
interesting.
So you start seeing player-made vehicles. To be fair, you're still dealing with the AI driving them, so something that requires a lot of complexity and finesse to be able to drive. AI is probably just going to go hump a tree somewhere, but the AI also fights one another. So that's another thing, is that there was a couple times that I would go in, catch a couple of the AIs severely injured that had some pretty decent parts on them, and then just pick them off when they were and then pick up the scraps.
Right. Yeah, that's always the best way to scavenge new stuff at the beginning of the game when you're all weak.
Yeah, but overall, I did enjoy my time with it. It was an interesting kind of reimagining of what Spore, or at least one stage of Spore, should have been to me. But, that's kind of what my memories of Spore is. Oh, this would have been a lot better if they fleshed this out, or this stage, or pretty much any system in that game.
Right.
So taking kind of the spirit of that and building up on it. And I do know that there's 6 different factions that you could build or get a reputation with. So there's quite a few choices of vehicles and a lot of mixing and matching. Like I was starting to get a reputation with the construction guys that has the giant yellow blocks. So my neutral vehicle was slowly getting taken over by these giant yellow cubes.
Yeah, they had just, or no, that was in the game at the time. I think there were 3 factions, and although there's still, I think, 3 factions. They're probably just more flushed out now. But I always went with the big yellow construction guys because they had the biggest parts. I was like, yeah, big, cool stuff.
Yeah, I just wish the campaign mode was co-op because that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I would absolutely love to do a co-op in one of these that we both could enjoy together. One of these types of games. Because, I mean, I love them to death.
Yeah.
All right.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is, at least for now. They may do that later. And I will say that I'm not sure about the price on it being its full price, because that is a bit expensive for this type of game, in my opinion.
What is it, $25?
Yeah. Well, at least with what I played of it, it felt more like a $20 game. Which I realize that's like splitting hairs at that point, but
yeah, I don't.
At least in the beginning, there's a rather padded feel to it. I'm not sure if later on, whenever you start unlocking more interesting missions, because I started to see more variety in the mission structure towards the end at hour 2 or 3. So if they continue to add on more complexity there, and also be able to build up your drone army and have things going on behind the scenes, because I didn't get to touch any of those systems really, then that would have been a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I think it's they have missions now. That's a thing. You had some tutorial stuff that gave you your first
they have
few things.
procedural generated missions now.
Yeah, that wasn't a thing when I was playing it. You had a few tutorial missions that gave you the basics, and then it was all right, this is a game in development. Things are subject to change. There might be resets. Your content might not work in the future, but go wild.
Yeah, they have missions that build up the factions, and they also generate random parts, and you could find random treasure chests in the world to also give you parts. And it's rather frustrating at times because, you'll finish a mission far from base, and you get the giant yellow blocks, and it's how the hell am I supposed to get this back home?
Yeah. Very carefully.
What is a little frustrating is the fact that, if you build up a junkyard and you don't have them all attached, they will despawn after a while. It's just kind of, a thing I wish that, you could build up a proper junkyard.
Yeah. Even just for cosmetics, that would be great to have just massive piles of parts.
Especially, if they had it where the AI could scavenge it. You got to be careful, leaving out the high-level weapons. Otherwise, the AI may, try to steal some and then go after you with them.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
But, overall, it's not a bad game. Like I said, I had my problems with it. There's things that I think could be improved. I wish it had a proper multiplayer mode for the campaign. I did toy around with the race mode, which looks like it's a set map, perhaps. That you have to essentially just try to survive the gauntlet, get to the end as fast as possible, and I just didn't spend enough time with it. And there's a sumo mode, which was interesting, that didn't even load up because, it was getting late, and, the game was going to go off free weekend before I woke up. Most likely. So just, called it a night there. But the fact that they've added more modes, right?
Yeah. More stuff. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to check it out later.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Speaking of
do you
games
wanna
that
do-
we played together,
yeah. So you and I played a game on Sunday. We played it all the way through. Relatively short, but an excellent game called We Were Here. This is a free-to-play asymmetric puzzle game. It took us, what did we figure?
a little over an hour.
Yeah, to beat it. And what it is that you're two, a pair of explorers or something. It's kind of unclear. You get like a little
It's
story
ambiguous.
cutscene.
Hand-drawn cutscene. Looks like you're like in the Arctic or Antarctic. It's cold out.
Yeah.
And you find this castle, and you get separated from your party, and you go inside, and then some guy with hairy legs knocks you out, and then one of you wakes up in the castle, and the other wakes up in the library.
Yep, and the two of you have to work together to solve puzzles, to progress through and escape.
Yeah, this is very much Portal-esque, as in it's a very fleshed out idea, but still you could call it a tech demo.
Yeah, there's a sequel.
Two
a
sequels.
paid sequel. Oh, I thought the second one was in production right now.
I thought it was, well, it's still coming out, so two sequels.
Right. But this one, like we said, free to play. We had a blast. It does have some stuff that I wasn't expecting going into it. There is a little bit of horror's the wrong word. Psychological horror, I guess. There's not really any jump scares. There's some creepy stuff, like a lot of sort of creepy imagery. There's some, creepy background sounds, things like that. A couple of times where your imagination is definitely worse than whatever it is that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a good, very, very dark atmospheric vibe to it. But it's not gory or bloody. There's no
there's
real
a little bit of
violence. Well, is there?
At least in the library there was.
Oh, if there was blood, I missed it. Well, no, I guess there's the bloody writing on the wall. But other than that, there's no blood that I saw.
Yeah, well, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. The game is broken up into multiple puzzle sections where that one of the two people is actually having to complete the puzzle while the other person is figuring out what the solutions to it are based on clues in the room. Most of the time, the librarian is the one who has got the information for how to tell the explorer how to solve the puzzle. But there were a couple of times when there was a puzzle where it's you had to manipulate something. Like there's a room that's filling up with like you get into it and it starts filling up with water, and you were the one who had to input the solution to the puzzle.
Yeah,
and I was the one who had to tell you what
which was
going
a
on,
nice
what the solution was.
change of pace.
Yeah, there's quite a few identify like the exact symbols and how well can you communicate with each other. Like at its heart, it's very simple stuff. If you can just communicate perfectly to each other what you see and how to do the thing. But the communication breakdown is where the most interesting part of the game comes in. And you and I we know each other pretty well. We've been friends for a long time. We were able to relatively quickly come up with a system of describing like the glyphs.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple where we ran into some problems.
Yeah, just because they were very similar glyphs. Well, purposely similar glyphs.
Yeah. There was one puzzle where that I didn't realize it, but whenever you failed it, it reset what the glyphs were that you were using to decode the solution. So I wound up failing that one a bunch of times until I realized, like, oh, every time I screw up, it changes the thing, and we have to find the new book with the new solution. Probably the two most difficult ones was one that involved you going outside. I'm not going to say specifically what that puzzle is, but one that involved me being outside in the freezing cold. So that imposed a very noticeable time limit as I essentially froze to death. Mm-hmm. While we were trying to solve the puzzle. And as the longer you're outside, the more narrow your vision gets, which actually makes it much more difficult to solve the puzzle with essentially tunnel vision. And then there was one, it's actually the final puzzle, that there is no labeling, no nothing, no easy way to identify what the solution was, aside from sort of trial and error. Like, I kept having to move positions to try and figure out what thing was doing what in order to solve that puzzle. And, I mean, once I got it memorized, it basically came down to a couple of times, like, okay, does it actually mean this one? Like, there were a couple, like, tricky bits, but in general, that one was just a memorization puzzle for me. But there's a number of different puzzles. They're all different. There's some randomization on at least several of them that we have confirmed for sure.
Yeah, mostly because we screwed up.
Yeah. They all have a failure state, I believe, except for, I think, the first one. I don't think anything happened on that very first puzzle before we pick up the walkie-talkies and then have to enter, essentially, the labyrinth or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if there's a failure state on that one, because we stood around for a while.
Yeah, because here's the thing, is that while you're running around, the librarian is pretty much confined to a single set of rooms the entire time. And a lot of the librarian's job, on top of just communication, is figuring out what set of solutions the room contains pertains to that particular puzzle. So there was a couple times that I started to go down the wrong path because I was assuming that I was supposed to use something that either wasn't in play at all, which there is a couple things to throw curveballs in, or I didn't notice something, so I was trying to force a solution that didn't make sense otherwise because it was for something completely different. So yeah, it's a very interesting asymmetric game that you don't see a lot of asymmetric co-op. You see a little bit, but usually it's more fast paced, and this gives a very generous time limit for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the probably the segment that felt the best between the two of us was what I'll call the labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And at first we were kind of struggling, and then like once it clicked for us, it was very satisfying for you to be like, okay, here, do this, then go back. And that was also one of the only sections that incorporated some very creepy stuff in it, some weird imagery down there. So I was really creeped out.
For me, it was a very intense thing just to try to keep track of where you were.
Yeah. And I was very creeped out by the surroundings. I don't like horror anyways. I have never made it a secret. I don't like being scared. This game walked the right balance between being just creepy enough to give me the heebie-jeebies and distract me at times, but I never felt like being like, okay, that's it, I'm done. I quit this. I can't take it. It's too scary.
Yeah, this has sort of that right at the Alan Wake threshold.
Yeah.
Where, yes, it's spooky, yes, it's creepy, but it's not overly so, it's not overtly so, but also it doesn't really rely on the crutches of horror that, it's a lot of gore, a lot of jump scares, a lot of, things chasing you. A lot of it is, subtle, or, it's playing on your imagination by using sound cues, or if there is something creepy, on the final puzzle, there was something actually creepy for me for one of the few times. It was more what the fuck than, an overt threat, even though it was technically a timer.
Yeah. A very, very spooky timer. Very spoopy.
Yeah, and we're intentionally leaving solutions out because we kind of called Kyle out for this game because we want to see this.
Yeah, I would love to see Kyle and Mel's do this and record it.
Especially if Mel's is the librarian, because I think
Mel's has to be the librarian. That would be hilarious. And no screen peeking. That ruins it if you're cheating.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna play this with Katie. I told her about it, and she was like, "Well, but then don't you know all the answers?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, but we only did one run through, so I'll be the librarian because I don't know the layout of those rooms or where anything is or how to interact with stuff. and then you can be the explorer, and then we can do that. We can talk our way through the puzzles. So I don't know when we're going to do that. I don't know if we'll actually get to do it this week for date night, but soon we'll play it. And it shall be good. But yeah, it was a very good game. I think we put the sequel on our wish list to pick up.
Well, it's been on my wish list for ages. And it goes fairly cheap on sale. But yeah, it's just I never picked it up.
Yeah.
Because it's a co-op only title.
But, well, I put it on my wish list. And then next time it's on sale, we will pick it up. We Were Here Too. TOO. As in also. But that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and We Were Here Together is coming out sometime this year.
Is We Were Here Together more than just 2 players? That would be interesting if they somehow worked it into a 3 or a 4-player game.
I'm not sure. There's... well, it talks about both players have to have a working PC-capable microphone, so it sounds like they're still doing 2-player co-op, which I think is a good place for it, because once you get past a certain point of a group, I think it'd be too chaotic to make it a really good puzzle game.
Yeah.
You could probably get away with 4, but it requires a lot better of a group.
Yeah, it would be probably total chaos if several people from our group tried to play. If we did like 4 together. A lot of crosstalk, which is very difficult to have in this game because you got to concentrate, beat the timers, all that jazz.
Yeah, well, or as the developer is, total mayhem.
Nice.
But yeah, very, very solid title. I think it was a very smart thing for him to do the first game as a free-to-play sort of tech demo introduction to the world. Because this is a game that I think a lot of people would be put off by, just due to its asymmetric nature. Because you just don't see that often. Just in multiplayer in general, let alone co-op. Only one I can think of off the top of my head is Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes for a co-op.
Journey. That's the one that comes to my mind. You have a sort of a guide that is always a real person. Mm-hmm. They can show up and help you through stuff. But there's no communication in that, so it's a little bit of a different experience, because you can't actually talk to the person that comes to be your guide or that you go to guide. So
yeah, which makes me wonder if there's still guides available in that game, since it is rather old now.
Good question. I have to fire it up and check it out. I've got it on my Xbox. But that would be for a different time. So I've got 2 other games I played this week besides We Were Here. The first is Galaxy Squad. I got a key for this on Keymailer. This is a very early alpha, early beta state game that tries to smush together FTL and XCOM. You've got the very heavily, not even inspired, practically copied XCOM combat system. So turn-based, uses the tile system. Each character has got special abilities that they can spec into and unlock based on their class. The weapon loadout system is fairly similar. It gives you a few more item slots. Instead of doing abilities that are sort of on cooldown timers, everyone has got kind of an action bar or a mana bar, however you want to look at it. So you can only use your special abilities a certain number of times in combat, so they've been given extra item slots to make up for it for consumables. And then also everyone has got a couple of upgrade slots by default. Instead of having to research upgrades that do that, that might change down the line. It copies the more modern style XCOM thing of I've got a ship that has rooms that can be upgraded to do stuff and give me bonuses or resources or whatever. And the way that works is your ship has got like power generation, which it has a certain amount of power by default. And then once you go over that, you start draining power every turn on the overworld map, which is where the FTL portion comes in. I'll talk about in a second. And then when you get to 0 power, you fail or you lose. You can build up extra power either by buying it, like essentially buying batteries, or you can put generators on your ship to give you more power by default to build it back up or sort of even it out. There's some interesting stuff you can do with that. Bonuses, upgrades, research, major tweaks to the way your squad works, like something like I think it's called energy field projector, and then like it's like a ship ability that you can just use that for a couple of turns will give your guys an energy shield which blocks, X amount of damage for those turns or until it takes that much damage and goes away, or some stuff like that. So, I mean, there's some customization to it, but the system is pretty bare. There's a very clear optimal build for whatever ship that you go with. Like, there's 3 different ships that each offer different bonuses to your squad by default, and then have a different number of customizable points on them. And just kind of looking over them, like, there's a pretty clear optimization path for each ship type for your gameplay style. Because there's one that sort of gives more bonuses to health and defense, one that gives them more to attack, and then one that gives you a boost more to your ability stats. And so if you want to min-max it, with the lack of options, it's a pretty clear path to do that for each ship based on what I've seen so far. The combat system, though, identical to XCOM. So far, every mission I've played breaks down into either defend X thing until all the bad guys are killed, or search the map to kill all the bad guys. Supposedly, there's supposed to be other missions, recovery type stuff, or, planting a bomb, or recovering an agent or something coming down the line. But right now, everything is just kill everything by finding it all, or kill everything by waiting for it to come to you. They have a numbers advantage, but your people are much, much more powerful. So it kind of evens out in that way. And it uses the same cover system and the same symbols for the cover system. Honestly, so many things are so identical. I might be worried about them, like if they pop up on the radar, getting sued for how identical.
Well, you can't copyright game mechanics.
Yes, but you can copy things like art style, right? And I mean, this really is like,
not art style, but the actual art. So if they're using characters lifted directly from XCOM.
No, they're not using characters lifted directly from XCOM, but
I mean, if you could copyright an art style, think of how shitty the world would be.
That's fair. That's fair play. I just like it's so similar. It feels like they could have some kind of lawsuit to even if they don't have like the basis to win the suit, like they can make the suit and then make it extremely difficult on these guys to keep developing their game. Like, it's very, very similar. Then there's the FTL portion, which you have a rather large space map. And there is the beginnings of a story. It's like the first couple of story missions, and then it turns into the free play game, or you can just start a free play game where you essentially roam the galaxy and take on missions and try not to run out of fuel or supplies to feed your crew. They say that it's going to have a story where that you're like being chased by a government and you have to stay, one step ahead of them at all times. And that's where the FTL inspiration comes from. But in the free play system, it basically just sort of shows where you've been and what systems are hostile to you and which ones aren't. It seems like there's a basis for a faction system that's not really implemented at this point, because there are alien races and missions to attack, certain groups or defend other groups. And certain like solar systems will turn either green or red, with red being they don't like you and they're hostile towards you, and then green being they do like you. And if you go to like the shop or something on that station, you can get a discount or whatever. Whereas if a system helps you or hates you enough, then you can't get supplies from them at all. So it's got some stuff like that, but that system is barely implemented into the game at all. It basically just functions more like an overworld map with your ship just consuming resources to go from solar system to solar system. Overall, at this point, it's an okay experience. I've had some fun with it with the couple hours that I've played it, but it's at this point, it's so early. It's extremely shallow. So, I mean, if you're really itching for this sort of turn-based experience, there's a lot better stuff out there right now. But, I mean, if you do like these types of games, it's something I think to maybe keep an eye on and just see how it develops down the line. It's currently $10 to get it right now. It's not worth that. I wouldn't say don't buy it at all. I mean, it's not like the game is fundamentally broken. It's not like it's an asset flip. Aside from maybe just the basic gameplay systems that they've essentially copied. But, I mean, there's a difference in flipping something and just copying it, I think. But, anyways, like, it's not, the game's not broken. It's not a virus. It doesn't have, as far as I have been able to tell.
Well, that's a glowing review.
I know. I mean, it's not like I'm saying, stay away from this. Like, if you like this type of game, there could be something here, and you keep your eye on it and see how it develops. But if you really want to play this type of game now, go play XCOM. Either of the two more recent XCOMs, or, BattleTech, or Xenonauts, or one of many other already established, well-designed, turn-based strategy games. Like, there's stuff out there right now that you would be better to spend your $10 on in a sale than to spend it on this and then hope for it to turn into something better. And I do hope it does turn into something better. I'm always up for a good turn-based, sci-fi themed strategy game, but I would not spend my own money on this at this point. So that's how I feel about that. And then the other game I played this week is Medal of Honor Pacific Assault. I had posted on Twitter sometime in the last couple of weeks, like, man, I really want to play some World War II themed games. And I was just looking through my library to see if I had anything. And I hopped on Origin because I remembered, like, I know I got a free game from them a while back. I'm pretty sure it was a Medal of Honor game, and I looked and it was this. I had never played Medal of Honor Pacific Assault before. I know it is an older game. It released in 2004. But I thought, you know what? It might still scratch that itch very well. It's been a long time since I've played some of these older World War II games, back when the story was the biggest deal within the game.
Yeah, not, it being a Battle Royale game, right?
Yeah. So I've only played it for, again, a couple of hours max. And I'm really impressed with this game. The graphics are pretty good considering how old the game is. I mean, it's obviously an older title, but it still looks pretty good. They didn't go too far one direction or the other. That is, I don't feel like they were trying to be hyper realistic, but they also didn't try and stylize or cartoon it up at all. It feels very real. The voice acting is surprisingly good for both the type of game it is and the time at which it came out. And it handles like a first-person shooter does, really. I mean, FPSs generally have been standardized for a long time. And aside from just the sort of basic functions for controlling your squad or doing certain things like picking up an injured person and bringing them back to a medic or a med station or something to heal them and return them to the fight. Like things like that are, sort of more unique mechanics to the game compared to other first-person shooters I've seen. You right-click to aim down your sights, left-click to shoot, control to toggle crouch.
Don't you mean left-click to make Nazi dead?
Well, this is Pacific Assault, so it's left-click to make a Japanese person dead. But I've played through the tutorial mission, which was about 30 or 45 minutes worth of boot camp, where you have a drill sergeant yell at you. Not quite Full Metal Jacket style, but inspired, I think, somewhat by Full Metal Jacket, because
Yeah,
he comes in at the beginning.
A PG version.
Yeah, he comes in at the beginning and he gives you a speech about God creating everything, and then on the 8th day, God created the Marine, and then like marching around the room and inspecting people, and you go out for a run and he yells at you and calls you sort of PG bad names like maggot and dirtbag and slug and things like that. And then you go through this whole thing, like you go through the training where it teaches you, the basic controls of the game, but also you run like an obstacle course and you do the whole stereotypical like movie style army kind of cutscene or montage scene.
Because you need a montage.
Yeah, where you're climbing over stuff and you crawl through some mud and people shoot bullets over your head and all that jazz. And you do the shooting training but I mean, it's like at this point, that's kind of cliched, but it's been a very long time since I have seen that in anything, especially since I've played something like that. So it felt oddly fresh and refreshing, despite the fact that I know it's been done a million times. It's just been so long since I've seen it. And it felt so genuine, too. Like, it wasn't full of bullshit or stupid jokes. They had, that sort of R. Lee Ermey light drill sergeant bit that they did a couple of times. But otherwise, it wasn't full of, like, stupid references to things or, lame jokes. They used it as a way to build some character for other members of your squad that I'm sure are going to be important to the story later on. And then it drops you into Pearl Harbor right before the attack. You've got maybe 5 or 10 minutes where you're sort of going around this base and your new commanding officer is talking to you and introducing you to people.
Now does anybody talk about they're like 2 days away from retirement?
No, they don't, actually. They do not. Or if they did, I didn't notice it. But, you do that whole thing where you tour the base, and it feels really genuine, really well done. Again, some sort of maybe Pearl Harbor, the movie-inspired scenes of people, like, training and things like that, but still, I enjoyed it. Then the attack happens, and you get in a PT boat, and you do your best to help defend the harbor. But obviously, as we all know from history, Pearl Harbor did not go well for the Americans. So it's a losing battle, and then you shift from trying to...
Wait, dude, spoilers!
So then you shift from trying to kill as many...
Next thing you're going to say is that the Titanic sank at the end of the movie.
The Titanic sank at the end of the movie, Rage.
Fuck!
But, then you kind of shift gears from trying to just kill as many Japanese planes as possible to, okay, we're screwed. Let's save as many people as we can. So then you go into, various situations and save people and, put out fires and do damage control and ships and things. And it does wrap up with some more shooting. You hop on a big Bofors 40mm and shoot down a few aircraft that are trying to bomb one of the battleships that actually escapes from Battleship Row in Pearl Harbor. You help defend the ship, and then you escape from where you were. I forget which battleship it was that you actually get onto, but as I like going through the scene, I'm like, oh, hey, there's the Tennessee, hi, and then like it blows up and it sinks, and I'm like, yeah, that happened to the Tennessee.
Yeah, the West Virginia is a rather sad tale. Or do you know that one?
No, actually, I don't know that one.
Well, the only reason why I know it is that my history teacher talked about it in high school. It's, the newsreel footage of the battleship that's upside down?
Yeah.
That's the West Virginia.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the thing is that there were people trapped inside of it.
Yeah.
And because, it's a battleship, it's rather armored, so they weren't able to cut into it to free a lot of people. So a lot of people either suffocated or drowned or starved to death inside of it. And there were some rather horror stories that my history teacher told me about. Like finding calendars that had several days past December 7th checked off.
Yeah. Is the West Virginia the one that's still under there that the memorial's for?
No, that's the Arizona, I believe.
Okay. But, yeah, I mean, that's where I've gotten to, the end of the Pearl Harbor scene. It was about 2 hours, and I'm looking forward to finishing the game. There's nothing about
I just wanted to double-check myself. Yeah, it was the Arizona. I was pretty sure it was, but it was one of those things, that little seed of doubt, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, there's nothing about it that's super wonky or janky. I mean, it looks dated, but otherwise it plays well. I'm loving the focus on story, and maybe it's a little cliched and overdramatic, but it's been a long time since an FPS has done something like that.
A story-driven World War II game.
Yeah, and it's good to go back to it. At least for me. So I'm looking forward to finishing it. I'm looking forward to getting, I'm going to get the Brothers in Arms series. There's, you can get all 3 games on Steam for, $20 now. But I've seen it on, the sale prices say it's been, $5 before for the 3-pack. So I want to get that, play through those games, and just go through some of these older games that I haven't played in a long time or ever and experience them. Because nothing that's coming out today really scratches that itch anymore.
What, you don't want to play the latest version of Battle Royale?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure if you heard me chuckle whenever I went to the Medal of Honor page on Origin. There's the red banner at the top. Do you know about Apex Legends is out now?
Yeah. No, I'm good.
A site-wide banner for it.
I don't need to play Apex Legends.
I was tempted to try it, but then I realized there'd be a lot of kids there. That would probably piss me off.
I've been tempted to try it a couple of times, but I'm not going to because I know I won't stick with it in the long run. And I've already got a whole bunch of games that I played that have no ending to them. I don't need another one.
Yeah, I actually downloaded it, but just never fired it up. But then again, I splurged on my internet, so it was 30 minutes for me to download it, max.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be something to try out together. I don't know. Because it is a squad-based battle royale, but it's not on my list.
Yeah, I would play it with you or for a community game night if people wanted to play it, but I'm not going to play it by myself. I have no interest in playing it by myself. So, but yeah, those are the games that I played this week.
Well, it's not all of them.
I was going to say, aside from our Game Club game. Which, in case this is the first time you've ever joined us for a game club,
we're sorry.
Rage and I typically have very different tastes in video games, and even games that we play together at the same time we tend to have differing opinions on. But that doesn't happen very often. So Game Club is a way for us to get together, both as co-hosts and as a podcasting community, to all play the same game at the same time and have a chance to talk about it. This week, this month, 1, February is already a short month, and 2, we had to bleed the January Game Club an extra week just due to craziness that happened, which I won't get back into just for time's sake. So we picked something that was super short, much more mechanic focused than story based or anything like that, which is Bomber Crew.
And back into the World War II theme again.
Yeah. Some time ago, when Twitch was doing free games for Twitch Prime or whatever.
Well, they're still doing it, but it was a particular month.
Right, but they gave this away along with its expansion or DLC or whatever that has the American content in it. So we played this through Twitch. I don't know if there's any major content difference on Steam or whatever.
Outside of having to pay for the DLC.
Yeah, I don't think there's a major difference, but just in case there is, we did play it through the Twitch app or the Twitch gaming app or whatever it's called. So just get that out of the way up front. Rage, tell us a little bit about Bomber Crew, and then we'll get into our thoughts.
Bomber Crew is a World War II themed FTL for lack of a better term. It's a vehicle management game where you're in control of like it says on the tin, a bomber crew doing missions and trying not to die horribly as you do them. And you have to maintain your crew, build them up, work on your aircraft, improve it, add extra systems, and run the missions, which also requires your direct input. Is there anything else I'm missing?
No, I don't think so.
The nutshell version of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically... There is a bit of a story to it as it progresses through the war, but, I mean, neither of us beat it for reasons that will become clear soon. But I don't know how integral the story is, because it is a rogue light.
Rogue
right?
light.
Is this a rogue light? Yeah. There's a
rogue
pretty
light,
big
it would be
emphasis
a bomber in a dungeon.
That sounds interesting, actually. But anyways, there's an emphasis on, you get shot down, your people die, spend time grinding, get back up there again, give it another try. So it's not a complete reset whenever you die, but you lose
a lot
of your stuff and have to grind it back up. So
yeah, particularly if you lose the aircraft, because that is the lion's share of your upgrades.
Yes. And also, if you lose the whole aircraft...
And it's like 10 times as expensive to outfit your aircraft as it is to a single crew member.
Yeah. And if you lose your aircraft, unless you have put lots of parachutes in it, many of your crew are going to die as well. Because not everybody has a parachute by default. You can have up to 4 parachutes in your plane on these equipment racks, but then that means you're sacrificing other equipment. And there are some people that get parachutes as like an ability. There might be a parachute that you can just buy as part of the gear loadout for your people at some point, but I did not unlock it, and I got farther than you did. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the plane goes down, you have a much higher chance of people dying, and less of them can bail
it's just
out.
like in real life.
Yeah. I mean, that does make sense. That checks out. But yeah, Bomber Crew started out okay for me, but the gameplay mechanics, several of them which are extremely frustrating, just
and
got
also
old.
the UI.
Yeah.
Oh, I hated the UI in the barracks, or I should say the base in general. It has slow ass transitions, and it's split. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this was a mobile first title. And it shows, because it is very, very frustrating on the amount of wasted screen real estate. Especially on equipping your crew and equipping the aircraft. Each individual slot of the crew is... or each individual crew member, I should say. Each individual slot is an entirely different menu, when it really didn't need to be. And it is a lot of busy work to, especially if you lose someone and you have to re-outfit them. That's a lot of clicking and a lot of going back and forth. And there's, like I said, long transitions between like going from the barracks to the aircraft, or going from the aircraft to the briefing, which is where you do your mission select. Unnecessarily long. I mean, I understand that they want to emphasize that, okay, you're in the actual base looking into the different buildings for the menu. But, there, at least for me, I'm not sure, it could be a quirk of my system, but there was like a hang where it stopped and thought about it, and then went into the building.
I got that sometimes. I didn't think too much about it, because it wasn't happening constantly for me. I just assumed the game was got hung up, difficulty loading or something.
Yeah, but it's just, I'm not sure if it was an artistic thing. I'm not sure if it was a loading screen that was hidden. But, this isn't exactly, a Crisis. This isn't a very pretty game. So it shouldn't take that much to load it.
No, it should not. I did like the art style, though.
It was all right. There was times that it was, a little too simplistic, especially whenever they tried to show something complex, like the radio. It just looks like a jumble of blocks that looks like nothing like a radio.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, there was that. There's a lot of bouncing individual pieces of equipment trying to. Well, in theory, I would assume that you would want to have a particular loadout for different types of missions. But because the missions are roguelite, they could throw you a different side objectives. And, if you're trying to build out to do high altitude bombing, or high altitude, then go in, dive down, and bomb real quick and get out. Well, a lot of the thermal stuff slows down your crew. So if you have to have like your engineer move around the aircraft to put out fires and fix things, you're going to be screwed because that engineer is going to be a lot slower. And some of these fights are actually pretty intense.
Yeah,
and it doesn't help that the UI sucks to manage individual crew members.
Yeah, there are hotkeys for actions, like if you select any of your gunners and hit R, they will go to like the ammo crate to get ammo to reload. And there's a hotkey to go to the hospital bed, and there's hotkeys for a couple of other actions for different crew positions. But
but to go to repair individual systems, there isn't, as far as I could tell.
No, there's not. And then your bomber, the
Bombardier.
Bombardier, thank you. He typically rides in the front turret, and then you swap him to the bombing station where he can like look through the bomb site. And there's no hotkey for that. Like, you have to manually select him and move him. And sometimes if you forget him, or if you misclick the tiniest bit, or the game decides that it just isn't like what you told it to do, then he'll, could wind up just standing in the nose, or I guess laying in the nose of the craft, not actually, on the bomb site. So you go to use the drop bombs, and it's like, oh, why can't I? He's he's like 2 inches away from it, and he can't move to the nearest station on his own or something like that. That's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, the game could have used some very basic automation for a lot of the more basic actions. And should I tell you how I lost my aircraft? Because it's both hilarious and shows you just how fucking frustrating the UI could be.
Sure, go for it.
I was coming off of the last mission of Chapter 2, which for me actually ended up being a bit tougher. I'm not sure if it's just I didn't grind up enough, if I just had bad luck on the RNG or what. But my aircraft got shot at pretty badly, all right? So I was coming into the airfield, and the aircraft spontaneously caught on fire, like you do. And that's one thing that frustrates the hell out of me about this game, is that this aircraft is obviously built by the lowest bidder, because when you start out, things break just randomly. But anyway, it was yelling at me to go put out a fire. Well, I had just repaired the engine, and I was sending him back, my engineer, back to the engineering station to basically hammer the lean fuel mixture, because I was running low on fuel because I had a tank shot and I lost a fair chunk of fuel. Well, when I clicked on the engineer station, instead of sending the engineer back, it selected the pilot. When it yelled at me to put out the fire, I thought I still had the engineer highlighted. I didn't. I had the pilot highlighted. So the pilot started to go back to put out the fire while the aircraft was doing a corkscrew down to get to altitude to land. So as soon as the pilot left the seat, the plane went out of control, and it was yelling at me to put the pilot back in the pilot position, or get someone on the stick. But because the plane was in a steep bank, I couldn't, because everybody was pinned, and I crashed and lost all but 2 of my crew. And that's when I messaged you and said, I'm done with this game.
Yeah, so I lost the only time I had a plane shot down was the final mission for Chapter 1, where you have to escort a ship in to
I never had an aircraft shot down. I had aircraft lost just due to pure stupidity of the UI. Well, I did have a couple aircraft crash on the landing strip just because I had a landing gear that wouldn't drop.
I did not have that. But yeah, so my plane got shot down. I completed the mission. So, I passed it. I went on to the first mission that was available in Chapter 2. But I completed the mission. I was coming back to base, and an enemy ace shows up. And, I mean, my plane was already shot up. I was low on fuel. I had multiple people hurt. Like, I was like, yeah, I did it. I'm going back to base. I'm safe. And then the ace shows up. And I remember, and he's in just the regular fighter. Because there's a heavy fighter which can fly higher. And then the regular fighters cannot fly quite as high. So it was something that they tell you. It's like if you're being pursued by a lot of fighters and you can't escape in one way or another, you don't feel like you could shoot them down, climb to the highest altitude possible, and they won't be able to follow you. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. Because I was flying at low altitude.
Yeah, there's 3 different altitude sets. Low, medium, and high. And they each have their particular things that you need. Like, low altitude is pretty much just, don't need anything special. Medium altitude, you need some thermal wear because it's starting to get cold. And if you're in high altitude, you actually need oxygen and more thermal wear. Otherwise, your crew will start to freeze. You could stay in the cold for a while, but if you stay too long, you actually kill them.
You can also avoid... when they're at their cruise stations, they have access to oxygen, internal oxygen. But if they get up and move around, they have to have oxygen in their flight gear, their flight suit.
Mm-hmm. And also, if the oxygen system suddenly breaks or gets shot,
then they'll all die if you don't.
Everybody
have
which
oxygen.
I was having so much trouble with the different systems breaking. Just drained me. I didn't trust it.
But anyways, so I punched the rich fuel mixture to go, to speed up, and then selected the highest altitude and started climbing. And the ace, even though he wasn't in the heavy fighter, still followed me all the way to high altitude. And, I had all of my guys attacking him. I did not have enough, I had oxygen. I didn't have good enough thermal gear to operate at high altitude for very long. And the plane started getting penetrated. My guys started getting hurt. I had 4 guys down, bleeding out at one point. Finally, the ace breaks off. He can't take it anymore. I'm like, okay, thank God. I can, save my crew. My plane is shot to hell. I've used all of my emergency, automatic... I had the engines to, you can get a thing that lets you just select an engine and put out a fire without having to send somebody out onto the wing to put out the fire.
Yeah.
You can also dive to put out the fire, but when you dive, if people aren't in their seats, they can sort of fly backwards in the plane, or they'll sort of be pinned to their seat and they can't move around. So I didn't want to dive to put out the fire because I had multiple people bleeding out. So I start stabilizing people. I have 6 people in the back of the plane, 4 people who are down, and then 2 people who are healing them. The only person I had not in the back was the pilot. Well, suddenly, I assume from all of the damage and the stress on the airframe, my plane splits in twain. The back comes off of the plane, and the 6 people in the back just spill out into the air, and my plane starts going down. And I'm like, I don't know if I can glide. I don't know, what I can do. I don't know if I can bail out. The pilot didn't have a parachute in his pack. The only parachute I had was in the rear of the aircraft. So the
pilot's like, well, fuck.
He rode that sucker all the way down. The pilot was the only survivor. The only recovered survivor. All of the rest of them died. The 4 people who were already bleeding out, they died, and then the other 2 people died and were not recovered. So I lost my plane. I lost all of my crew except for the pilot. And I was also done with it for a little while. I had to take a break and come back to it. And I had maxed out the plane. I had maxed out my... Well, I hadn't maxed out my crew, but...
Yeah, well, maxed out to that point because you're constantly getting unlocks.
Right. I had maxed it out to the point where I could then. And I lost roughly half of my upgrades on the plane, and I had to start over with a brand new crew and spend a lot of time grinding them up to get their skills back. That was the only time my plane got shot down. All the other times I either was able to save it or it didn't even come close to getting shot down.
Yeah, see, I had the plane a couple times crash on the runway because I had a landing gear that was stuck, and there's nothing you could do about that, as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
It doesn't count as losing the plane though, because you could still recover it. Thankfully, but it doesn't count as the safe return bonus, which requires extra missions to be able to grind out some more.
Yeah. I had one time my gear was stuck, but it was stuck extended. So
that's lucky.
I was still able to land. No problem.
Yeah,
the biggest
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No. After you.
Okay. The biggest problem I have with the game is the stupid targeting system.
Oh yeah. There is an upgrade for the radio guy for auto targeting, but that's very high level.
Yeah.
My radio guy and my pilot are the only ones that survived the crash. So I did have the auto targeting, but it's so stupid. Because on top of having to manage your crew, which there's one thing that they should have stole from FTL is the save and return to stations buttons, and they didn't do that. And I don't know why they didn't, because there's so much of moving around people that it makes a lot of sense in this game. But on top of managing your crew, you're constantly having to do course corrections and target enemies as they show up. And to do that, you have to go into a targeting mode, which zooms in, and you have to hold the view over the enemy or whatever. And this is for all course corrections, all targets for different missions. And it's something like, 1 or 2 seconds? But the thing is that whenever an enemy is coming in, if they go over you, well, you have to swing the camera around, and there's just something about how they have this camera where it's very tough to follow enemies that goes over or above you. Or at least for me it was.
No, it was for me too. And if they break out of that targeting circle, there's... I don't know if there's a little bit of a grace period or not, because if they fly over and you lose it, and you have to sort of come around and get back on target, you have to start that targeting process over again. Which, again, it's only a couple of seconds, but it's frustrating.
But it's for each enemy. And there's times that you'll be facing half a dozen or more enemies. So you have to target each individual one. And that's on top of mission objectives as well, because at least for me, the last mission I did was the one with the V2 rocket.
Yeah.
And that also shows the weakness of the navigation was that it kept sending me away from the rocket. But the pilot would constantly bitch that, he needs course corrections. And there's just so much on screen that having the additional text box saying, I need a course correction, is covering up even more of the screen. And yes, there is an ability to slow down time, borrowing that from FTL, the pause time feature. But for one, it's a limited resource of 10 seconds? It's a very short time. And two, it slows down the targeting reticle.
Yeah, it slows down everything else. So, I mean, the point of that, in my mind, should be it slows down everything else except what you're doing to give you a chance to catch up and get some stuff, planned out. But instead, it just slows everything down, which in some sense makes it easier to keep the targeting reticle on a bomber flying, or on a fighter flying over or under you. But otherwise, it's what's the point? I almost never used it.
At the end, I just never used it at all. And you also get a slight bonus for not using it. I would have unbound it, but you can't even see the keybinds. At least as far as I know. Maybe it's in somewhere, but it was also a Unity game, so it may have been in the launcher.
Yeah. Problematic.
Yeah, you do have the ability eventually. It's actually the first unlock ability on the navigator to set a custom waypoint. But on top of everything else, having to set the custom waypoint, it's, in order to do that, you have to click on the navigator, then click on the, figure out in relation to where your plane is on the little mini map that is on the navigator screen, where you want the waypoint. Then you go into targeting mode and target the waypoint that you just created to navigate to it.
Yeah, the only time the waypoint, in my opinion, is useful is whenever you've completed your mission, maybe even you complete all the bonus objectives, and all you need to do is get back to base. So you can set the custom waypoint on or real close to the base instead of having to wait for it to update every 60 seconds or whatever the timer is. And keep
I think the
making
timer
course
depends on
corrections.
how much cloud cover you have.
Okay. Well, I mean, whatever the interval happens to be, you can just set one waypoint and head towards your base versus every whatever. Okay, I need to target the new waypoint because I've gone off course. Okay, I need to target the new waypoint because I've gone off course. You avoid that.
Yeah. Something else is that the skill system feels a little lacking to me. Just the fact that, okay, gunners always have the same skills in the same order. There's no variance. There's no choice. It feels like it's a system that could have been improved a little bit more or given some more depth. Bombardier is the same way. You do eventually, after, was it like level 4, get the sub job. But even then, it feels like there's a very optimized path,
Yeah.
Like have one gunner be first aid as a secondary job so they can heal a bit better. Or, have... your navigator be able to take over as an engineer or something. All the crew are able to do all the jobs at a very basic level, but you don't get the extra perks or abilities. So, like, gunners have the ability to focus fire to get a better accuracy. And is it more damage as well? Or is it just accuracy? But whatever it is,
No, it's just accuracy, which,
Okay.
I mean, I guess in the long
still-
run does mean you get more damage.
Yeah, because
but...
there is a recoil for the guns, but
Yeah.
And then there's a defensive fire where you're just kind of spraying and praying to get fighters to break away, and and it's always those two abilities for gunners, no matter what. Bombardiers, they get the ability to be able to take recon photographs from a mid-level altitude, but I never got that to work right. Did you?
No, but I also just kind of ignored recon photographs unless that was the actual mission itself.
Well, remember, I lost a couple of people, so I was trying to gain some extra money.
Right.
And there's also two currencies. There's money, and then there's research. Research, which allows you to get higher level stuff earlier, but it's such a grind that I never really was able to do it.
Yeah, I got a few things, but... I mean, you do unlock stuff as you go, so I kind of was like, okay, here's a need, or this is something that might fit my playstyle better. I'll get this sooner. But nothing ever really seemed to pay off that well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no there's no additional planes to unlock or to
you're always the
be able
bomber.
to get. Yep, and you're always the same bomber,
and you're always the lone bomber. That's the other thing.
Yeah, there's you can have a B-17 if you play the American DLC or expansion or whatever it is.
Yeah, but
that's
it probably
their
plays
bomber.
exactly the same, right?
Yeah, it plays the same. He's just got American themed and
no tea kettle built into the plane.
no, definitely gotta have that tea kettle.
Actually, that was a thing in the British tanks.
Yep.
I'm
Was
not making
indeed.
it up.
No, I know you're not making it up. I know that it's a real thing.
But yeah, it's just, it feels like this is, it has the potential of being something a lot better, but there's just a lot of systems that never felt like they were really fleshed out to me. There was a decent amount of mission variety, but it's just, you're still looking at like 5-10 minute missions where a lot of it is just downtime waiting to get to the waypoints.
Yeah, and constantly hitting lean fuel because you're always out of fuel until you get some other upgrades.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that it's not the different abilities aren't toggles either. You have to constantly hit lean fuel. You have to ask for recon. It's just some of the abilities would have made sense as toggles, and some wouldn't. Focus fire doesn't make sense as a toggle. That should be a timed ability. But lean fuel mixture, it's like, okay, that's enough. Back to the regular. Well, does he get bored?
Yeah. I don't. I'm just thinking. I don't think I have anything else to really like. I didn't.
I didn't hate the game. It's just it's kind of meh. There's a lot of things I had problems with on a mechanics based level, just because it either didn't make sense or it felt like it wasn't built around a PC. So it was a lot of, trying to shoehorn gameplay mechanics into something that shouldn't be gameplay mechanics, especially that targeting system. I absolutely hate that fucking targeting system. I mean, it made sense for to do some sort of navigation, but I think that would have been a lot more interesting if you actually did it on the map, on the navigator screen, instead of doing it in the overworld by a targeting reticle. Or even better yet, instead of having individual waypoints, be able to draw out your flight path. And the skill of your pilot determines how closely you're able to follow that. But have the ability for the pilot to override that during an emergency. But to be fair, bombers weren't exactly the most agile of aircraft.
No, they were not. And the whole strategy for creating a bomber that was so, tough that a fighter couldn't take it down never really panned out. And that idea required whole air groups of bombers to make it work. And you're a lone bomber in every mission. I don't know of any mission where you get support from other aircraft aside from the tutorial where you get some Spitfires that come and help
that's
you
actually
with fighters.
You never actually have a friendly aircraft. Now that I think about it, you always encounter the pilots had to bail out, and you have to drop supplies to them.
Yeah. So I don't know if there are any missions anywhere in the game that actually do that, but I never saw one.
Yeah, and supposedly the missions that have you shooting at a mobile target are absolutely horrid. I mean, I encountered that with the V2 mission where, for quite a while, because I just didn't mess with the custom waypoints, because usually whenever I needed them, I was busy elsewhere. The waypoints were good enough, and it, kept me from falling asleep on the way back.
Yeah.
But that one mission where it constantly kept taking me sort of just far enough away from the rocket to be able to shoot it down. To be fair, it's not the primary objective, but that's a lot of money.
Right.
And also, whenever you're doing a bombing run, for some bombing runs, you only have one shot for each of them. In some of the missions, you're flying over a group of fuel depots, and you have to bomb the proper one, otherwise it doesn't count. So yeah.
So I don't think that this is necessarily a bad game from a
I would say it's a flawed
sense. Game. Yeah, it's flawed. There's stuff here that people could like, for sure, and it's not like the game, the exe file doesn't work or anything like that. But it is a mess. It feels like a mess. Like they should have cut or changed some mechanics. Like they didn't quite know what they were doing when it came to deciding how the game was really going to play out. So, yeah, I mean...
Actually, this was never a mobile game. It just feels like it. It is on console, though, so maybe that's it.
Maybe. Actually, I might like this game better playing it with a controller.
See, and that's the thing, is that now that I look here and I see, it's on PlayStation 4. The way that camera handles in targeting mode makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't recommend it. I'm not going to play it anymore.
Yeah, it's if you're hard up for a FTL-like game, there's a lot better clones out there. Unless you absolutely have to have a bomber-themed one.
Yeah, or really, really, really need World War II in your life.
Yeah, and even then, I'd be surprised that there's not another World War II FTL-like out there.
Probably. I could see a naval-based World War II FTL like being a pretty swell deal.
Now, something like this, where it's more naval combat, where you don't have to deal with aircraft constantly flying over you in a targeting mode. I could probably work it a little bit better. But that targeting mode, I think, is what killed it for me. Because I can understand having to ground back up, especially if if you lose a lot of your crew or lose your crew in craft. Can you imagine having a full wipe, if that's possible?
Oh, that would be terrible.
Especially since a lot of the really required abilities are like, level 4 or 5. I think the auto target ability for the navigator is like a level 6. Which, as soon as I got that, I was pretty much hammering it.
Yeah. No, having a full wipe would not be fun.
I mean, it makes sense in a sense, but I think another thing that they should have done outside of, streamline the barracks screen is make it where you could turn down people so you could try to re-roll. But all the characters have some sort of trait system that never really gets explained what they do outside of, obviously the different characters have slightly different stats. So, there's something at play there. But being able to send away, okay, well, I got a lot of crappy gunners. Send them away. Let's see if I get something better. Even if it costs you like a little bit of money or a little bit of research to, to cast them off to, these guys suck. Give me something else. And also, something that kind of bugged me is that you're in a very locked loadout, especially with the different types of missions that you have to do. I would have liked to seen the option to, I don't want to have a dedicated navigator. I want to have a gunner that has a secondary ability that is a navigator, so I could have all my guns manned at all times. Or, something like that. But no, you're forced to have one pilot, not two, like the real bombers did. A navigator, a radio man, an engineer, 2 gunners, and a bombardier.
2 gunners and a... Yeah.
And it's that, and nothing else. As soon as you get 2 gunners, all the other gunners are gone, and you only have bombardiers. I would like to see some sort of option of, some player choice there.
Yeah.
Have your...
That would have been nice. I had that same thought. Like, I want to get people with different stats, or maybe not even necessarily just, different, but, I mean, you could get different, named people with different sort of little backgrounds, and men and women, and just being able to get more chance as it rolls on that sort of stuff.
Or even have it where the different traits that people have affect what skills they learn.
Yeah,
because it's always the set skills. There should have. I would have liked to seen some sort of skill either skill tree or skill choice system. But no, you're never given a choice outside of your secondary profession, essentially, for each crew member, which was slightly disappointing to me.
Yeah,
because part of the fun of a roguelite or roguelike, because that term's kind of blurred these days, is the character creation and the character story. As they progress, what skills they pick up, what armor they pick up, their story. But for bomber crew, you lost your gunners. They're back at level 2 because that's the best that you were able to get in the barracks. So okay, your gunners have focus fire again, no matter what. Or one of your gunners is level 1. When he levels up, he'll get focus fire again, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It feels almost like an early access game.
But it is not. It is fully released. Has DLC and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, which a lot of the DLC is mostly cosmetic with some extra missions and items. I didn't even really touch the DLC, though.
I didn't either. The base game is $15 if you buy the deluxe edition, which has, everything at this point. It's $25, and then you can buy the different, DLCs individually if you do so desire.
Yeah, this is not a $25 game, in my opinion.
No.
15's probably pushing it.
I could see 15 as like a niche title for someone who's really into it. For someone who just wants to check it out, between $5 and $10 feels pretty appropriate, I think. But otherwise, yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, which is a shame because it looks very interesting. It does have a nice art style for the most part. Some of the more complex items are just look like a mess. But damn.
Yeah.
It's a shame that the American DLC, it doesn't change the gameplay any at all. It looks like it may have a slight change on just because of where the top turret, I'm not sure the proper term for it, is located on the craft itself. It looks like it's more forward.
Yeah.
So it may provide a little bit better coverage. But yeah, that's about it. Yeah, just disappointing overall.
Yeah. It's meh.
Not bad, but not I wonder if they're planning on doing another game in this type of style, or this kind of genre. Because as far as I could tell, they've only done Bomber Crew. Let's see. Let's do a quick search on them. Runner Duck. I feel a little bad about shitting on them so much. They're a 2-person indie studio. But being honest about it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot of positive reviews on Steam. Mm-hmm. I think this has clicked with a certain group of people that enjoy it, and that's great. I mean, it's not like the game is broken or necessarily bad 100%. It's just got things in there that we both happen to find frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So,
especially that targeting system. Oh,
yeah.
And it's not so much the targeting system; it's the fact that your gunners will sit there and get shot up if you don't manually target.
And if you don't manually reload, they'll just sit there with no ammo.
Oh, I started just the tail turret just got the auto feed upgrade instantly.
Yeah,
because that's a long trek for that guy, and he has to climb over a couple things. So it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah. So neither of us really liked it all that much. Well, let's talk about what we're going to do for March, which is another World War II game. We are going to be playing the original Company of Heroes. We're going to focus on, what did we say, the American campaign?
Yeah, that's the first campaign, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. And, we might get into more of it if both of us are able to get past it, but the real focus is going to be the American campaign, so...
Yeah, and single-player focus, of course. Hey, we get to storm the beaches of Normandy, though. We never get to do that in a video game, ever.
Not anymore.
Yeah, the beaches of Normandy is just covered with loot boxes these days. And kids.
Loot boxes. Okie dokie.
But yeah, so, still in the World War II theme, but now we're going strategy. So we'll see if that...
looking forward to that.
Does a little bit better.
Yep. All right. Do you need a break or anything?
Probably wouldn't hurt to stand up for a little bit.
Okay, then we will take a quick break between this and our first news segment, and then we'll be right back. Bethesda bans Fallout 76's one fan for accumulating too much ammo. Again, the gift that keeps on shitting the bed.
I'm sure that there's other fans out there. They just don't have 900 hours.
Yeah, so the short version of the story is that there was this player who has 900 hours played across a couple of characters, at least two that seemed to be important to the story. And what he was doing was trading ammo back and forth between the characters to try out different weapons, at least according to what he says. I have no idea.
There's this story requires a bit of belief on either Bethesda's part or the player's part, and honestly, I kind of lean towards the player here, just because Bethesda's been so fucking incompetent.
Yeah, like, it seems weird that he would do this, but having not played Fallout 76 and
supposedly
the inventory foibles
the inventory is supposedly very limited, and it's limited by weight, I believe, if I recall correctly. And ammo, of course, has a weight on it.
Right.
And what this guy was doing, which here's kind of his take on it, is that it picked up that he had over 100,000 of several different ammos, which is supposed to be impossible in a 30-day period, including a couple of rare items. And a couple people, including Sid Alpha, which is in the show notes, but him, the band person himself, also says that this is likely what happened. And I kind of believe it because, like Sid Alpha said, that this is kind of an edge case to begin with, because he's probably passing off a lot of ammo to begin with. Is that it keeps track as a anti-cheat thing how much people pick up. And if you see a lot of a certain item, that's a potential red flag to pay attention to them more. Well, the way this guy was handing off ammo, instead of doing the actual in-game trading interface, because it's supposedly not very good, which is not hard to believe, he was using world containers and just dumping stuff into a container and having the other account pick it up. Well, according to some ideas for how this could possibly trigger a flag if he isn't item duping, which, like I said, requires a little bit of belief on his part, is that it was picking up that he was picking up, let's say 10,000 of 9mm rounds. All right, I'm not sure if 9mm is one of the particular ammo types in this, but it's devil's advocate, for simplicity's sake. He picks up 10,000 rounds. Well, he then decides, I don't like this particular gun. I'll go bank this ammo. So he drops 10,000 rounds. Well, he gets another gun that's used that particular ammo that, maybe I want to try that. He'll pass off the 10,000 rounds again. And because it didn't take the original 10,000 off when he dropped them, well, suddenly that character's picked up 20,000. Then 30. It still requires a lot of back and forth, but this is a guy that supposedly has 900 hours played, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility when you have somebody that's insane, right?
Yeah. I mean, I read somewhere someone worked it out.
9 hours plus per day.
Yeah,
every
day.
day.
I can get pretty obsessive over games and things, but I've never gotten that obsessive over one. Even EVE Online, I wasn't.
Oh no, you're pushing it with BattleTech there for a bit.
Yeah, but to keep it up for months, like the first month when everything in my life was perfectly aligned to play BattleTech nonstop, I did. And then, I had other shit. And even then, like, I can't put 900 hours at a time into a game. Like, there are games that I have played and will play for that long, but it's spread out over the course of years.
Yeah, I think my account... let's see. Let's go to my Steam account. This should be fun. I think I have one game that would go over this, or maybe two. And of course, I click the games thing, and it sits there. It's like, oh god, please don't. I know I have two because I have Warframe and Team Fortress 2. And I think that's it for me. Yeah. Firefox doesn't like going to my games tab. It's like, this web page is loading slowly. Are you sure you want to do this? But yeah, just Warframe and Team Fortress 2. And that's, the course of years. And then, MMOs, of course. But, that's also over the course of years. So I know I'd have it on EverQuest and World of Warcraft. But yeah, once again, years, not months.
Yeah, I've got that many in EVE Online, which took several years to play to get that high, and then Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I had, I believe, 1,200 hours total, but it took me the better part of 10 years to get that many hours played into it. And I started playing that when I was in high school.
I'd probably be pushing it, but not close to it.
But those are the only two that I know of that I have. I've had several that have gotten pretty high, but yeah. Those are the only two. And again, years, not 3 months. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane to begin with. Do you suddenly have the urge to reach out to this guy's like, do you need to talk?
No. It wouldn't do any good.
But maybe, maybe he's like a guard somewhere and, he has a lot of free time.
Reach out to him and be like, hey, how do you get 9 hours a day to play video games?
I mean, damn. But yeah.
Yeah.
But this is getting beyond the issue, because we are ignoring the fact that he got banned for this. And it's just, there's some weird stuff going on, but then we also look at, it's Bethesda.
Yeah. I can understand devs wanting to ban people who are or have proven to be cheaters. And this is like a really weird case where
this
like
is an edge case to begin
maybe, but it's like, I mean, all he's doing is just having shitloads of ammo. Like
that's if this is true, and that's the only item that was triggered on this. There was one rare ammo, and then there was a couple others that were supposedly pretty common. It was received an email, and it doesn't list the particular ammos in this one. Of course, right? But it's within 30 days of gameplay. So that's the other thing, is 30 days of gameplay. Does that mean 30 days, as in the last 30 days? Or does it mean, 30 days worth of hours? Which would be 720 hours of gameplay. Once again, a lot of gameplay for 100,000 rounds, but not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, after 60-ish hours in Fallout 4, I had at minimum hundreds of rounds for everything and thousands for some others, weapons that, common that maybe I didn't use as much anyways or whatever. So, I mean, I could see having shitloads of ammo just from gameplay. So.
Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of weird things to begin with in this, on both sides, because, even if he has tens of thousands of rounds, that's still a lot of back and forth. But with just how crazy the cache system is supposedly in this game, it's not impossible. Plus, if he was crafting the ammo on top of it.
Yeah. Crafting, finding, and then trading, if it's logging the way he was doing it, if it was logging all of it as items picked up and nothing dropped.
Yeah, especially since how he was handling it over.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's just...
It's a very weird edge case that I think Bethesda did the wrong thing.
I think if this, this is such an edge case that it's setting off a red flag. I don't blame them for that, because I don't think they would have expected people to use the world containers to trade massive amounts of ammo when there's an in-game training system, because that has an inherent risk to it. That said, it should have only triggered a red flag, and then they should have investigated more closely to see what this guy was doing, or even reach out to him if they found it was, okay, he's trading ammo back and forth, but we're not seeing any odd numbers of his ammo. What's going on here? Not just ban him and say, okay, no appeals. It's the same sort of mentality that they've had with people getting in out of bounds areas, claiming, okay, your character save is corrupted. You're going to have to write an essay now. First down and corrupt it, or uncorrupted. Massive sarcasm quotes there.
Yeah.
Bethesda has gotten kind of too big for their britches, haven't they?
Oh yeah, they definitely have. And if this scenario was the only thing wrong with Fallout 76, it wouldn't be as much of a topic at this point. But because it's just thing after thing after thing after thing, it's like that has become Fallout 76. Just this mess of really horrible news stories.
Yeah, I'm very tempted to see if I could contact the moderators of Rube Goldberg Fails on Reddit and see if Fallout 76 is eligible.
That's amazing. I approve.
It's just one thing after another. And the fact that they went after supposedly their biggest fan, because I can't imagine anybody else that's played it more. And I love the comment that he had on the Reddit post. Let's see if it has it on this one. Final edit. Still banned. Patch did nothing. Submitted another ticket. Maybe I get an agent who reads the ticket this time. Good luck to anybody still in the same boat. I think I'm going to go give Warframe a try. Oh.
Yeah. Good luck, friend. I hope you enjoy Warframe.
Yeah, it's just... it's just the echo chamber in the Fallout 76 subreddit as well. That's just... Oh... Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that, maybe this game isn't that great, or maybe the support isn't that great. I think people are slowly starting to turn, but there's a lot of Stockholm syndrome going on.
Yeah, and there will be for some people. And there will be some people who never give up. The people who... there is obviously at least a small subset of people who, for one reason or another, enjoy this game. And good for those people, I'm glad that they can enjoy something that most people seem to hate. I get that, enjoying things people that don't like, or not liking things that most people do.
I mean, I have no reason to believe that this guy doesn't have the hours he claims, because he has a rather detailed... leveling or farming guide on here, and that requires a fair amount of information.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah, I think so. It's just Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
Is that our version of Ubisoft?
Yes, indeed.
Bethesda. It's amazing at this point just how incompetent they can be. And hey, they're talking about bringing mods back in the roadmap. Who wants to bet that they're going to be paid mods?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because the Creation Club, it's kind of... we're in kind of this weird state right now. A little bit of a tangent here. Where... How many of the game developers that you grew up with that you absolutely loved are in or either dead or in such a state that they're unrecognizable?
Most of them.
Yeah, same here. I mean,
all of them, maybe.
I'm trying to think of any. I mean, if I go far enough back, then Nintendo. But Nintendo, I'm not the demographic for them anymore, so that's not. Yeah, even that doesn't really count. A lot of the games I played growing up, those studios have either been dissolved or just incorporated to other entities that they're unrecognizable now.
Yeah, I'm drawing a pretty big blank on anything that's not degraded in quality, let's say.
Yeah. Which part of that may be nostalgia as well, looking back at the good old days, But I'm not 100% sure on it being just nostalgia, because there is, especially in the more big budget titles, a more of aiming towards the lowest common denominator, because the stakes are so high that they can't try to do something more over the top. They can't do something more detailed. They have to make it as accessible as possible. They have to make it as easy as possible. And even the in-game content for these games, they have to be accessible. They have to be open. That's what kind of turned me off on World of Warcraft, when they made the late game raids for the new expansion that had just came out so simplistic that it took the fun out of it for me. The challenge just wasn't there, and more the challenge was the new raiders that my guild was bringing in just not communicating properly. And that was that was the catch, was, they would, run the wrong direction and wipe the raid because of it. It wasn't because the mechanics were difficult. It was just that they would either panic or they were stupid.
Or both.
Yeah, or a combination thereof. So maybe that's, maybe the future is more indie games and the indie arms of the big studios, even though, the indie arms of big studios is a rarity to begin with. That AA space in Ubisoft, for example. EA technically has it, but that's usually one or two games, and then that gets either absorbed into the bigger entities, or they just drop the IP altogether and they it languishes. You're not going to have a long series like that.
Yeah.
Which, the future of gaming seems a little bleak at times whenever you look at some of these practices.
Sometimes, but I think that there will be a course correction at some point. Not necessarily that the big companies will be willing to do it on their own, but that it'll just happen. And also, a lot of my faith in the gaming space is with indie developers these days. And I think, well, I don't necessarily think what seems likely is that there will probably be a few of the sort of old guard that remain, but I think we'll see sort of a wave or ripple effect of newer indie studios rising to the levels that a lot of the large but not, gigantic AAA studios were at a few years ago up to the current time. I'm thinking like Konami and Bandai Namco and some stuff like that, like these big prominent studios that are not quite as prominent as they once were. Seeing a few big indies come to replace them or add to their ranks and cause a shift in the...
Or mid-tier publishers as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing, is that it doesn't have to be independent completely. It could be, the mid-tier publishers that are happy being in that space to be a more niche audience. Could be another part of it, where you'll have a publisher that more specializes in like simulators or that sort of thing, or just have Nordic or THQ Nordic, where they're technically a really big publisher, but they let their devs kind of have free reign, and just as long as they fulfill their contracts, they can go do their own thing. They're not. They haven't gone full EA yet, even though I have to admit that they are making me a little worried,
Yeah.
Because they do have a lot of acquisitions, and they are gearing up for a lot more. So they do have a potential of becoming EA, corporate overlords, and just start filling up a graveyard. But at the same time, we haven't seen that yet from them. I do have to wonder, though, since we are kind of on this topic, and maybe we should add this to either Franken content or just put in like a little general discussion note in the show notes. I don't know. Are we going to see BioWare gone in the next year? Just because of how Anthem's been reviewed lately.
We'll see. I think Anthem overall is going to fall into that category of like the Destinies and the whatever, like not a good launch, spend some time patching up the holes that they, should have dealt with pre-launch, but hey, let's get this games as a service thing out there. And over the next 2 years, give or take, as the player base dwindles, it'll hit its real stride. Because we've seen that with all of these big ones. I mean even the Division had that.
Warframe
Destiny had that. Warframe had it.
Yeah, but here's the catch: is that they weren't published by EA.
Yeah,
and EA is EA going to play the long game on this? Because honestly, in the past they haven't.
Yeah,
EA's been about short-term investments and short-term gains, and kind of ignoring the long tail.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't get cut loose too soon, I'm going to enjoy Anthem when I get into it. Everyone's saying, like, hey, Anthem is like Destiny when it first released. It's terrible. And I'm going, I love Destiny when it first released. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but boy, did I enjoy that game.
Yeah, but you also have awful taste in games at times.
I have my own taste in games. I reject that I have awful taste in games. I just have my taste in games.
I said at times.
Yeah. I don't think that Anthem, though, is an awful game. I think it's catering to a certain type of audience, that sci-fi.
I think Anthem would have been a lot better off if it wasn't a BioWare game. Because it has that history, that pedigree behind it of very strong character-driven stories, very strong worlds.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of the hallmarks of a BioWare game up until Mass Effect Andromeda. And then, people are looking at Anthem and seeing, this is kind of a generic looter shooter. Yes, it has an interesting world, but supposedly the main villain just is a generic take over the world guy. There's no real interesting character with him. There's some not great game mechanics that can be fixed, yes, but for a launch, they should have been fixed. But people are expecting a lot better polish out of BioWare. And supposedly even the characters aren't exactly that great, which is BioWare's bread and butter.
Yeah.
So maybe the pedigree of BioWare is bringing down Anthem's review scores. Now, I'm being completely honest with that one, giving them the benefit of the doubt on that one. That maybe it is the fact that this is a BioWare game is making people a lot more critical of it. But at the same time, I've watched a fair number of reviews to get a feel for this game. Because I have to admit, I was curious about it. I had very little interest in going for it, but I was curious. And there's a lot of gameplay mechanics that would just highly piss me off.
Yeah. I mean, from playing the demo, like I said when I really talked about it, I liked all the game mechanics. I liked the characters and the story presented, but I think I did say something along the lines of like, this is demo, this is a slice. They probably picked some of the stronger content or whatever to get into, or focused on some of the more interesting characters. So, that is definitely a very clear possibility that I'm not like, oh yeah, well what I played was good, so it's good. You're wrong. Like, that's not where I'm coming from on that. But I did love the gameplay. So I don't know. I'm going to get into it at some point, unless they just, drop loot boxes and shit into it before that time comes, at which point, I would already be committed, so there's nothing I can really do about it. But, as long as they don't do that before I get into it, I'm going to jump in at some point, and I'm just going to wait until... Well, less of an issue because there's no PvP, but I know we've had that discussion longer. We've previously had that discussion, but, those are really the only major things that if it happens before I buy into it, I'm going to avoid it. because I did enjoy my time in the demo. And there's going to come a point where that people are going to be like, hey, Anthem, they fixed a bunch of those problems that it had, and here comes like an expansion or something. Now's a good time to jump in, and I'm going to go, yes, I think now's the time where I jump in. And I'm looking forward to that time. And until then, I'll just play something else. We've been talking about Anthem. Let's swap around. Did we put it up here? Did we not put it up here? We didn't. Never mind. Nope. Yes, we did. It's down here near the bottom. So since we've been talking about Anthem, we're going to bump up one of the news topics. YouTube creator misleads public over Anthem video takedown. Yeah, I'll rearrange this in the show notes real quick.
This really plays into the overall distrust of EA. So, a reviewer, should we name him or should we not?
I don't give a shit if we want to name him, but we don't have to.
Well, I don't even see his name on here real quick. So, video reviewer, since I can't be bothered with it because it's an obnoxious name.
GGG Man Lives. I have no idea who that is, but is this a link to his channel, perhaps? Yeah, GGG Man Lives.
So G posted a review and then had EA contact him to take it down, and he blew it out of proportion on Twitter. And there's a lot of, once again, this requires a level of trust either on G-Man or EA. And with the facts of the matter, especially in the Sid Alpha video, him breaking down a lot of it, because people jumped on this really quickly. Honestly, I can't blame them, though, especially when it comes to EA, because EA has done some shitty things in the past. Hell, EA has done shitty things in the last year. So, yeah, it's not hard to believe EA would try to quell criticism. But people jumped on this saying, oh, EA's trying to stifle negative critique, especially from their creator club, or their whatever version of it, where the Game Changers program, that's it. Sorry, I was trying to find it on here. Which is a community partnership program through EA to prominent content create. I hate marketing material like this,
Yeah.
Basically, it gives high-level influencers, which that's another thing that I absolutely hate, the term influencer, early access to certain games, which Anthem was one of them. Well, part of this program is that it's a free thing. You don't get anything outside the game. It's essentially a review code system. But they have a secondary program that is paid sponsorship for their creators, which is and I'm just double checking to make sure I'm not getting the terms backwards here, because the other system is a paid partnership, and because he put the wrong watermark on it, it wasn't doing the proper disclosure of a paid promotional video, which is a no to the FTC, and EA is playing very, very carefully with this disclosure, because it can come back to bite them if the FTC actually starts to begin to give a damn. So he blows up on Twitter. Gaming pundits and journalists start jumping on this, because in the fast-moving world of the internet, there's no time to double check things, and you can't exactly contact EA and expect them to get a very quick response. It starts making rounds on the internet, and he gets a lot of popularity, and then it starts the story starts to break down, right?
Yeah. So he words tripping over them. So yes, he seems to play this up, say that they pulled his video down because he was actually saying negative things about the game, as opposed to whether or not it was a mistake or he did it on purpose or whatever. With the wrong watermark, like that being the issue. He was claiming, oh, they pulled it down for negative criticism, which I believe fully that EA has done that before. Other game publishers and developers have done that before, but there's a lot of negative criticism about Anthem from both large and small reviewers on YouTube and, other places, gaming websites and whatnot. Some bigger, some smaller than this guy, because his channel, he's got like 250,000 or 300,000 subscribers. Oh no, 216,000. So, that's not nothing, but that's also not, a giant channel or anything. But there's plenty of reviewers out there smaller than him that have had negative criticism about the game. It's not been pulled down. And EA quickly comes back and is like, no, we did not do this. We did not pull it down because of that. We did not blacklist him because of negative criticism, because that was something else. I can't remember if he said that or someone else brought that up and that became a part of the narrative. But how that, they expect you to give positive feedback by, having you in these programs and paying you, and that's like part of the contract or whatever. And they were saying, no, we didn't do that. We're not blacklisting him because he didn't do what we told him to or anything like that. The whole reason we pulled it down was because of this watermarking issue. He wasn't following the terms of service, and he put it back up after he changed the watermark, and it was fine. No one has pulled it back down since. So, I'm looking at it here on his channel right now, and it says my re-uploaded Anthem review. It's still bad, and then his name or his channel name in the YouTube title. So it's up. It's been up for 4 days. It's got a little over 200,000 views.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably his most viewed video now, just because, he's gotten so much publicity off of this, which is, the entire point of this. But he's really burned his bridges, especially with EA, because, this was him getting early access to stuff, and now he's not going to get that, because I would imagine that they would be very careful about giving him stuff now. Rightfully so. He was bitching about being blacklisted. Well, guess what? You're probably blacklisted now. Rightfully so. If him doing this much of a stink about this over a non-issue. Now, this could be EA triggering something that, because he never showed the actual email, which is a pretty big red flag of wanting me to give EA what EA's version of events of what happened is closer to the truth. EA could have had a badly worded email that made him think that, it's since they may have not said, as part of the Game Changers program, you have to pull down this video. That would probably, make him think that, it's because it's negative criticism and I'm going to go off on Twitter about it. So, there is the possibility that EA could be at a bit of a fault here. But then, you open up communication and try to figure out what's going on, not immediately start bitching on Twitter. Because that is burning your bridges. That is going to get you blacklisted.
Right. So, I don't typically like to side with big game companies on any issue. And there is always a possibility that
it feels weird given EA, this is probably what happened.
Yeah, there is always the possibility that, there's something funky going on here, but it seems like based on what we know and the sort of evidence that's been presented that, at best it was a miscommunication that he sort of responded a bit childishly to, and at worst actively trying to capitalize on the situation, lying about it to improve his own channel status and whatnot through the controversy, and it's kind of backfired on him. So that's kind of the range here of that.
Yeah, if I was in control of EA's handing out of keys like this, I would think twice about giving him something anymore if he's still a part of the program. because that's the other thing. You're not. It's not a. It's a privilege, not a right to be in that.
Yeah.
And you are in a privileged position, and whenever you throw them under the bus for wanting you to give proper disclosure, even if it's a badly worded email, you figure out what's going on. If you don't hear back from them, then you start asking on Twitter. But yeah, it's just a knee-jerk reaction, and the fact that gaming media picked up on this rather quickly, which, like I said, I understand why, because EA has done some crappy things, so it's not unimaginable that they would try to stifle some sort of review. But then you start looking around like, well, why this guy, right?
Yeah.
So things don't add up in his story, and it requires a major screw up on EA's part to really give them, well, it's your fault, EA. Because I imagine they probably have a form letter that, you just fill out for the corporate drone, right?
Yeah, probably. So, yeah, I don't like to.
Yeah, this feels weird.
Yeah, it does feel weird, but I try to look at things based on the evidence and, as objectively as possible. And I mean, it seems like EA has got a good chance of being in the clear here. So unless something happens that clearly proves it differently, I'm going to chalk this one up to that guy either having misunderstanding or being kind of an asshole. Although he might be kind of an asshole even if it's a misunderstanding, but
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean. Alrighty, moving on to our next news
speaking of assholes
topic. Yeah, the Federal Trade Commission is going to host a public loot box workshop.
Yeah, it turns out they're going to be working on how to improve loot boxes.
Yay.
I'm not sure how I feel about this, to be perfectly honest, because the FTC has gone out of their way to, say we don't want to regulate this. So them hosting a workshop like this makes me think that, this is just lip service. It's not really going to be any real effort put forward. But at the same time, maybe there is, I don't know. What's your take on this one? Because I'm kind of torn on this.
I'm of two minds about it. On the one hand, it's like, okay, it is a big enough topic that, the FTC is going to, discuss it, open some sort of
Dialogue.
Look into it. Some sort of dialogue about it. But on the other hand, I just have no faith in the U.S. government and any agency that is a part of the U.S. government to do anything that would benefit consumers. I hope that that's going to be changing with the Democratic-controlled House and potentially further shifts to, liberal attitudes over the next couple of election cycles. But, there's always a chance that that won't happen. And I just have no faith that the U.S. government and the state that it's in now will actually pursue this in any meaningful manner. So, I mean, I want it to do something, but I don't think that it will.
Yeah, I honestly think that this is going to be either lip service or, it's going to end up with really nothing happening no matter what, because it's they're going to have parent groups, they're going to have industry leaders, they're going to have consumer advocacy organizations here, according to this. But at the same time, are they going to listen? Because, let's pick a subject almost at random. How about net neutrality? They really listened about that one, didn't they?
Yeah. They did not.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic. So the fact that, they're hosting this doesn't mean that they're listening. This, merely means that, they're opening up a dialogue, but, that doesn't mean that there's going to be a proper line of communication here. There's not going to be of moving forward of this. But at the same time, it may be enough to scare the hell out of the industry. So who knows, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Hope for the best, but don't really expect anything. It's kind of how I feel about things.
It sounds like government right now.
Yeah. Sounds exactly like government right now.
Especially whenever I get email about from Twitter, right?
Yeah. Well, that went by pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot to talk about on this one, really, because it's just an announcement of a workshop. Did they even say when it's going to be? Be held
later this year, I think.
Held at some point in 2019. So, not even an idea of when this is going to happen, just that it is going to happen. And trying to speculate on, where are they going to do? Well, the big subject before was net neutrality, and they completely ignored the outcry and said, it's just a bunch of bots, right?
Yeah.
Never mind that the ones that were in favor against net neutrality were the bots, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
stupid bots.
Damn Russia.
Actually, I apologize, robots. I would like to praise our new robot overlords when you hear this podcast in the future. I have nothing against your Twitter bots. Please don't make me a slave or kill me. I'm fine with being a pet. All right. Next news topic. There is rumored financial trouble at GOG. That's Good Old Games.
Yeah, which they're not exactly good old games anymore because they have a fair number of contemporary titles right now as well. So
they do.
It's kind of a misnomer to begin with, but GOG laid off a dozen people, which is a fair amount of their workforce. Actually, they run fairly lean to begin with, and citing financial difficulties, which is troubling.
Yeah. So, GOG is an arm of CD Projekt, which CD Projekt Red, the people who do The Witcher, and the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077, or whatever the year on it is. So, they're a division, a branch, however you want to look at it, under their parent company. And this came as a pretty big surprise to me. Like, I know that GOG has not raked in money hand over fist like Steam has.
Yeah, even though they've been
perception.
Yeah, they've been pretty generous on giving away games to try to bring in customers. But I gotta admit that I've never really bought anything from there. I'd go for Green Man Gaming, but then again, I don't do a lot of old retro titles, which is what their main focus is. That's the lion's share of their library.
Yeah. But I thought that GOG was doing okay, but just sort of breezing through this article, they had a really rough February. They had a something, let's see if I'm paraphrasing this correctly, something like they'd had a decent January, but they'd been making some internal shifts, changing things around, trying to compete with more generous dev revenue splits, which was kind of eating into their money.
They're actually getting rid of the fair price package program, which is a part of that, where they would give back a portion of the game price out of their own pocket to try to match prices. Let's see. We came up with the fair price package, the FPP, as a way to make up the price difference between various countries. Some games on GOG have regional pricing, meaning the price of the same game in one place can be higher compared to its price in North America. In countries where the game is more expensive, we gave users the equivalent of the price difference in GOG wallet funds. In actual numbers, on average, we gave users back 12% of the game price from our own pocket. In some cases, this number can reach as high as 37%. In the past, we were able to cover these extra costs from our cut and still turn a small profit. Unfortunately, this is not the case anymore. With an increasing share paid to developers, our cut gets smaller. However, we look at it at the end of the day, we are a store and we need to make sure we sell games without a loss. Removing the FPP is not a decision we take lightly, but by making this change, we will be able to offer better conditions to game creators, which in turn will allow us to offer you a more curated, curated Black Cat games and new. Sorry, that's kind of a weird turn of phrase, isn't it? Yeah. That's why I kind of stumbled over it. I said Black Cat. Wait, did I read that right? And new releases all DRM free. So they're cutting the program to be able to give it back to the developers to try to bring in more niche titles or games that just never or aren't really sold anymore. So it makes sense. It's sad to see a program like that go, but I understand why, especially whenever they talk about being dangerously close in the red. Has come up in the past few months, and the market's moved towards higher developer revenue shares has begun to affect their bottom line. So I can understand why they're doing it, and having to lean out a bit on top of everything. It makes sense, and I hope that they could stay afloat because the fact that they're one of the few full DRM free storefronts, if not the only one, is trying to push the fact that DRM fully locking down a game isn't a requirement to be able to sell it. But at the same time, it does cost them money because that those games are pirated quite often.
Yeah. Yeah. It's another thought I'm having is it's interesting to see this amid like the Activision Blizzard layoffs and
but this is making more sense for a layoff instead of we have record revenue, let's cut some people.
No, absolutely, it does make perfect sense like why they're doing it, and it doesn't feel like bullshit garbage, but at the same time it just serves to highlight how fucking bullshit those things are. Activision Blizzard and whatnot right now. I don't know, it just reminded me like, oh yeah, there are times when this has to be done for legitimate reasons, even though it sucks. And I don't know, it just feels weird. Like that they're still like the bare minimum of like what you expect from combination of human decency and also just like needing to do what you have to do being juxtaposed against immoral assholes. Basically, it's like they seem like saints even though they're in trouble. Like it's like they're just
it sounds like
doing things that
they're running on a pretty lean margin.
I mean they're just doing things that make sense instead of being like assholes, but that's enough to make them seem like really good people just by doing like what makes the most sense and is like an average thing. So
I hope that they can pull out of this, but at the same time, seeing stories about GOG laying off people and then announcing the conclusion of their fair price package, I think that's going to spook some people. And as a matter of fact, in the comments of this story, there's people talking about, okay, go download your games.
Yeah.
So it's a bit worrisome. I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon. I hope not. But the fact that they run on such a lean margin, or they are a front for a larger company, though. So in theory, they could run as a loss leader, but not forever. They could. They don't have to be profitable every month. But if they start costing the main company too much money, you don't expect them to sell at a loss. So it wouldn't be fair to expect CD Projekt to keep GOG open if they're constantly losing money. They can't be YouTube for Google, right?
Yeah.
But to be fair, that's not quite a fair comparison because GOG actually produces positive publicity and positive feelings, not, oh God, another controversy.
Yeah. Not another shit show.
So
disaster, not another anxiety-inducing event.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll pull it into our last news topic of the night. Metro Exodus players are leaving thousands of positive reviews, ... on Steam.
Well, it has to be on Steam because Epic doesn't have user reviews.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny because last time I checked, matter of fact, a lot of the positive reviews had the double, middle fingers. So, it's like, fuck you. A matter of fact, look, on the storefront, the second highest rated up, double middle fingers Epic Store.
Yeah. Epic Games, do you still have Steam after all this time? Me, always. And then double flipping off Epic Store.
Yeah, and just so many of these reviews are exactly the same. Positive review, but flipping off Epic Store. This is like the anti-review bomb because they don't want to purge this, but at the same time, it's not showing Epic in a good light.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame people. It was on Steam for the longest time, and then suddenly, relatively close to launch, it's gone. And people are angry, upset about that stuff. And it makes sense because we're not... exclusivity has not been a thing on PC. And to some extent, it's still not. It's not the same concept as console exclusivity. But, the fact that you have to have 14 different launchers or more in order to have access to all the games you want to play is a foreign concept to PC players. Because it was, for the longest time in the physical hardware era, it was just, you got a floppy disk or... a CD or a DVD, depending on what era it was that you were, in at the time. And then Steam became a thing, and we had a little bit of a chat about this last night while we were playing DEF CON. But, Steam standardized the digital marketplace, and that was it for a long time. Or, well, not that was it, but that was, 90+% of your market for a long time in terms of digital PC distribution. And for a while, and even today, there are still some titles that you can get, physical copies of that actually have physical copy. But there was a time when they coexisted in sort of the mid-2000s period.
There's actually a LGR video of the big box games, and you could and he talks about the progression of them to the small box. Then eventually it becomes a rarity. Lazy Game Reviewer, LGR. He does some really interesting PC retrospectives and history stuff. Go check him out.
Yeah, I love LGR. LGR and 8-Bit Guy.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are great. But anyways, there was a time when they coexisted, and then Steam just sort of, steamrolled the marketplace. And then there was the period where there was Uplay and Origin.
Yeah, which Uplay never really had a good market share unless you were really into Ubisoft titles. But even then, they still sold them on Steam. It just Uplay was a secondary launcher that you had to open up, even to this day. And there was a very famous split when EA pulled all their said that all new titles weren't going to be on Steam anymore. They were going to be Origin exclusives, and that was like really the first taste that we had of that. You had little bits of it here and there, but it was never a dedicated storefront. With the exception of things like Blizzard games were never on Steam. They were always their own thing, but it was never a storefront until very recently.
Right. And then you did have GOG in there, but GOG's whole thing was focusing on, primarily retro titles, which was something that Steam didn't really do at the time, and really still doesn't. There are some retro titles on Steam, but nowhere near what GOG has on offer. So there was still this big separation of, for sort of, I guess you could say, mainstream, or for the main game playing, the main PC gamer. Steam was it, or mostly it. And we've now got this thing where it's like, well, now do we need to go to the Epic launcher? Do we need to go to the Origin launcher? Do we need to go Steam? Do we need to go to wherever? And games can't be purchased on multiple platforms. It's a very odd time to be a PC gamer, where once before you had basically unlimited freedom or nearly unlimited freedom, and they're trying to box us off like they have done on consoles for ever. And yeah, I'm just waiting for the point when it gets really bad, like the player or the gamer response, I guess, is when that gets very, because I mean, we are seeing bits of it, but whenever the PC gamer, or whenever the gamer public really comes back against something, it can cause whole rethinks of the way things are done. Like the most recent thing that comes to mind in the last couple of years has been Battlefront 2. And I know that was more than PC gamers who went off on the, the infamous pride and accomplishment statement.
The most downvoted post in Reddit history. But that's going to be quite the thing to try to top, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, we could see that kind of response or larger from PC gamers, who I think by and large tend to be much closer to the, the hardcore, air quotes, hardcore gamer, or the people who have gaming as a hobby, as opposed to just like, I play games sometimes for fun, or I play one specific genre or type of game. They're much more likely to be more like me and you, because many PC gamers do put together their own rigs and take time to invest into that. So there will be, I think, a massive backlash at some point.
Yeah, I'm starting to get really worried about how fractured gaming is becoming on the PC platform. Just how many more storefronts are we going to get before we hit that tipping point? And there's really no going back on that. Once a storefront gets established, especially by a publisher, there's really no reason for them to shut it down. So I don't expect to see new EA titles on Steam anytime soon.
No, I don't either. And you know what? That's fine. Fuck them. Actually, it's not fine. It sucks, but fuck them anyways.
Yeah, it's just, it gets very annoying. But then we hit kind of the problem that GOG is having, where they are a secondary, more niche storefront, but they're just not getting the traffic. Or even Steam itself. It was on the docket that Steam is shutting down their video arm. Yes, Steam had a video arm, because it just doesn't sell enough. It's just not worthwhile for them. There's people have their established habits. They have what they like, what they want to do, and it's trying to get people to change their habits is very difficult. So trying to become a new storefront that's not just some sort of very niche thing is going to be very tough to break into at this point. And what niche is there outside of being a big publisher? I mean, even retro titles, Steam is covering that pretty well these days. So GOG is starting to see a real downturn. So I'm not sure just where to go with it outside of things that Steam just doesn't allow, and you're starting to hit in some legal gray areas because U.S. law sucks.
Yeah, U.S. law does suck.
Yeah, it's just a very annoying thing to try to deal with, but it's sort of like trying to watch a movie, looking like, okay, I could. It's not on this service, this service, this service, but it's on this service, so I could go sign up for that one if I want to watch this. But then I only have that service for that movie, and is it worth that? Yeah, probably not. I'll go watch something else, right?
Yeah. Indeed. Well, now I feel sad about the PC gaming space for a moment. Although I'm also very sleepy, and feeling sad is not going to last very long. Because the next time I yawn,
we'll just hear a thud.
Over. Yeah. With that in mind, I think it's going to be another week where we take Discovery Queue off the end. Because it's... by the time we get done, it'll be about 12:45, and I really try hard to get in bed by 1 a.m. So...
Yeah, otherwise you turn into a pumpkin. And that's bad for your blood sugar.
It's extremely bad for my blood sugar. So, Community Corner. We did not receive any emails this week, but highlighting game night, as always. We played DEF CON again
I did get frustrated
night.
with DEF CON, mostly because it looked like I was taking a lot more damage than I actually was. And,
yeah, you wound up winning, overall.
Well, the thing was that eventually the nukes were blowing up due to my shots, but on my screen, all my shots were orbiting the nukes, and I was just seeing them blow up. So I was starting to get a bit pissed because of the game mechanics. Not the fact that I was getting shot at, it was just, it looked like I was taking damage when I wasn't.
So I looked into that just out of curiosity, like how that mechanic works. And even if it looks like the missile hits the nuke, or doesn't, whether it hits it or doesn't hit it, it doesn't matter. There's just a chance, sort of a roll you get on whether or not the missile blows up the nuke. And it's, a smaller chance. So it looks like the nukes oftentimes will get hit multiple times. But really, you only actually have to score a single hit, and then you destroy the nuke.
All right.
So it kind of obfuscates that from the player. So even if they're spinning around or, orbiting the nuke, it doesn't really mean anything. It's sort of a background roll that happens at a certain point when the missile's in proximity to the nuke, whether or not you actually make contact with it. So, but I mean that that's visually frustrating to see, and having that knowledge doesn't really make it any better.
Yeah,
but I did look that up after what happened last night.
Yeah, and like I said, it looked like I was taking some severe damage because of it. Because eventually the nuke would blow up, and it's hard to tell if I'm taking a hit or if the nuke was destroyed.
Yeah.
But anyway, game night.
Indeed. So yeah, we played DEF CON last week. I don't think we had a definite pick.
No, we didn't.
But Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes was thrown around a couple of times last night when we were talking. We'll check in. I'll post something in Discord, maybe a little bit sooner this time because we didn't definitively decide. But the idea was there are some of us that have the game, and we would be the actual ones doing the bomb defusing, and we would get the PDF copy of the manual to distribute to the players who were not, who don't have the game, and are not
really
defusing
testing
the
friendship
bomb.
Now.
So, we can do it that way. But that is if we go for it. I'll check in maybe when this goes up on Friday. Around that time, that way there's something
usually
on the
around
weekend.
noon.
Yeah,
actually around 11 o'clock. At a random time around 11.
Yep.
Ish.
It's usually pretty much right at noon for me. But, anyways, yeah. That's that for Monday night game night, or community game night, or whatever. We had, last week was our biggest turnout so far since we started doing it again. There were 5 of us, and that was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening and you want to come join us for some game time.
Yeah, I know Jim got frustrated because he didn't know any of the game, which, sorry about that, Jim.
Yeah.
I thought
Jim still did okay.
Yeah, I thought he knew more than what he actually did, which was actually nothing. So I do feel bad about not helping him.
Jim came into it the exact same way that I did, having never played the game before or really seen it in action. And I had, my first game I had more score, but that was completely random luck. I had a lot more shit get blown up than he did in my first game. I mean, I think overall Jim did about as well as I did the first time. So, Jim, I hope that the experience was not too bad. Now that you sort of know what to do in those first few rounds, maybe... we can give it another try. We're gonna we'll take a break from DEF CON this week. I don't want to run a game in the ground.
Yeah, especially a game like DEF CON where a single game is all night.
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours. for us to play a single game. And you could do it faster if you sped time up a lot, but I don't think any of us are good enough to play that at higher than 1x speed most of the time.
Yeah, and it gives away a tactical advantage if you're calling out, okay, slow down time.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll take at least a break for a week, maybe longer. This is kind of more of a democracy than not. If nobody is able to agree on something, we might just pick something, or I might just pick something, or maybe we could take turns on it between you and me, whatever. But like if we get no agreements from anybody, like we might just have to pick something and run with it. But typically I want this to run more like a democracy so that everybody feels like they get included in the decision-making process. So if you do want to join, follow the links to, on wherever you're watching or listening to this video to our Discord. That's where it gets posted.
Yeah, setting your time out because I still haven't gotten that bot installed yet. Really should do that. Just don't want to do it when I'm half asleep and screw up something. And I've been having sleep issues. Of course, drinking coffee right before the podcast probably is not going to help me tonight, but
Yeah, right before bedtime. Or, I don't know. I don't know when you're actually going to try and go to bed tonight, but that's the only reason I didn't drink coffee, to perk myself back up. Because it'll be bedtime as soon as we're done. But anyways,
I'm probably not going to have a great day tomorrow because I'm probably going to have to cut back to 1 cup to try to, counterbalance so I don't, my running total's not 3 instead of 2.
Yeah. So you want to hit him with the socials, our email and our Twitter?
Well, if I must, our email is vglpodcast@gmail.com, where you can send your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics, or game suggestions if you have a good one that we may not know about. Or you can just tweet it to us, VGL Podcast, on the Twitter. Our lovely, lovely patrons help pay for this absolute madness, and you can find more info on patreon.com/VGL Podcast. And since they do help pay for things, they do cover our Podbean account, vglpodcast.podbean.com, which hosts the show notes, links to all our media. Our iTunes and Google Play also has our podcast listed, so you can find us there as well. Are we completely skipping our, saying where we are on the...
Oh, no, I wasn't intending to do that. I was just thinking, because you usually say the email and the Twitter.
I did most of the outro already.
That's fair. I mean, if you want to slide into just finishing, we can, or we can swing back around.
You find me on Twitter, Gaming with CR. You can find me on YouTube, Gaming with Caffeine Rage, or you can find me on Steam, once again, Caffeine Rage. And you are...
Gaming Psychologist on the YouTubes, at JMA4707 on Twitter, and JArthur4707 on Steam.
And if you wish to give them a password this week, the password is Love Shack.
Nice.
Oh, you get the reference.
Love Shack is a little old place where
it was too perfect,
together.
Right?
Yeah. I wish it wasn't Game Club week, because then Love Shack would be the perfect name for this episode. But
Nope. Actually, we were kind of the anti-Love Shack, huh? Maybe this is how we should do the outro. Instead of sliding into outro with after our personal stuff. Something to consider.
Hey, that's fine with me.
It's more streamlined.
Works for me. I do like saying hit him with the socials. That's a fun phrase to say.
Yeah, not cringy at all.
Yeah, but I don't give a shit about that. Everybody who listens to this podcast knows that I don't give 2 fucks. So.
Yeah, it requires effort to give a fuck.
Indeed.
But
what about that?
But our intro and
outro music.
Music is On the Ground by Kim McLeod. You can find his work at Incompetech.com, where he does absolutely give a fuck.
Oh, and as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice. Bye-bye now.
See ya.
Bye-bye.